Well, hey, everybody, and happy Saturday. Hope you're doing well. We're going to continue our coverage today of the Idaho Four. This is a group of four university students that were brutally stabbed to death in the middle of the night. And so, very unfortunate. And I put it in the poll question if you would just join me in praying for these families, because I couldn't imagine that they're having to be dealing with the kind of thing that they're dealing with. They send their kids off to college. One of them's a freshman, even, and they think everything's going to be fine, nothing to worry about. They're just, normal college students, and then wake up one morning to find out that they've been brutally stabbed to death. And not only that, for everybody who lives in this small town of about 25,000 people, they don't even really have a lead on who may have done this. I would be terrified if I'm living in that area. I wouldn't want my kid at that college. And so, as you guys might imagine, this is definitely a very difficult situation. And so, we're going to continue our coverage of that today. We're going to be taking some deep dives into some theories and possible ideas of what may have happened. There's definitely a lot of weird stuff rolling around on the internet about this case as well. And so we'll probably talk about some of that stuff, as far as like there's an Instagram called the Moscow Slayer where they're talking about this kind of thing. There was 7 phone calls from the victim's sister. Uh, it's just super. I mean, there's just weird little snippets of weird things that are going on that I do think needs to be discussed and talked about. And so that's what we're here to do today. Hopefully, you're doing well. And I'd love to know where you're watching from. I'm coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. Beautiful city. Don't know if you've ever been here, but it is definitely a beautiful, beautiful city. And I'd love to know where you're watching from. If you guys are just getting started on the video, you can help us out by hitting the like button. That's going to help shoot us out into the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, we send an invitation for you to subscribe to our channel. And I also want to extend an invitation for some of you guys to join our membership program. It's called the Feller Fam. It's one of the best ways that you can help us out. And so I don't know if you are able to do that or thought about doing that, but it gives you access to our Facebook group. And there's a lot of really good action that happens on our Feller Fam Facebook group. So if you're part of our paid membership program here on YouTube, I think one of the best perks is that we give you an opportunity also to be on our Facebook group. So I want to extend that invitation to you guys today and just say, hey, today might be the day that you go ahead and join us in the Feller Fam. And we'd love to have you in that Facebook group as well. Now let's see who we have on the stream today. Philadelphia. Hey, Cheryl, how are you? Really good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Leo girl, you're in South Africa? I didn't know that. Wow. What a blessing. Really good to see you. Thank you for being here with us today. Long Island in the house, Indiana. There's a lot of Indianas in the house. Thank you. Thank you. My attention is the hoodie guy at the food truck. You know what? People have been telling me that guy has been identified. That guy's been identified. However, I haven't seen one source that has officially said that that guy has been identified. And so, if somebody has the source that says that guy's been identified, we had a long conversation about the color of that guy's shoes and whether they're low tops or high tops. And it's kind of a silly conversation. People were getting so upset about it. But if that guy has not been identified and he's on the loose, he clearly seemed to be at least watching what was going on with the girls, then yeah, we need to figure out who that guy is. And the color of his shoe makes a difference because there's not very many Nikes with a red swoosh on both sides like that. Hey, Edie Ruth from Louisville, good to see you. California, Merced, Dubai. Hey, Rhino Girl, I remember before you being on here from Dubai, it just fascinates me so much. I want to go to Dubai. Oh man, that just sounds like so much fun. I'd love to hear from you about what life is like there. It's really good to see you. Hope you're doing well in Australia, Indiana, Kingsport, Tennessee, Palm Springs, Chicago, Wisconsin, Georgia, NorCal. Good to see you, Massachusetts. Seoul. How are you guys doing? Richmond, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Africa. Good to see you. Canada, Scotland, Oregon, Pennsylvania. You never been to Tennessee? You need to be here. Hey, Cheryl, Southern Kentucky, Chicago, Pittsburgh. Georgia today, Tim. My goodness, you're moving up north, I guess. Illinois, Pantego, Ohio. Good to see you. Oh, Heidi Joy, can you send me the link that says that? North Carolina, good to see you. Waco, Texas. Hey, Lanny, hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Spokane, Washington, Eastern Washington, Green Bay. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, the only thing I've heard about that, and I've searched it and tried to get down to the bottom of it. It's like I've heard people say, like in chat rooms and stuff, "Oh yeah, yeah, the hoodie guy's been identified," but nobody's verified that to me, and so I'd like some verification on that. Did you? How many people were here for Faith Friday last night? I'd love to know if you watched that, if you were encouraged by it. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. You can't send links in the chat, Katie. It blocks them automatically. You have to email me. Press@tylerfeller.com if you're going to send a link. Oh, great. You guys did enjoy it. Fantastic stream. Great stream. It was great. Great stream last night. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching. Faith Friday was amazing. See, thank you guys for tuning in. Okay. Let me dive into this. University of Idaho students had defensive wounds with new info on roommates and mystery man revealed by the Moscow cops. Maybe this link will share it. I haven't read it yet. But I did find it fascinating that they had defensive wounds. It means that they were surprise attacked, maybe likely sleeping, and then were coming back at it. So very interesting. Autopsy results in the gruesome stabbing deaths of 4 college students have revealed that some of the victims suffered defensive wounds. The cops revealed the findings on Friday while releasing new information about the student's roommate and a mystery man seen in a chilling video. See, I missed the update yesterday, but so we'll get caught up for sure. Man, when I see these college students, my heart breaks. My heart breaks for them. Dear goodness, their life is in front of them. They're tasting adulthood for the first time. Never thought anything like this would happen, and then wham bam. My goodness, it's absolutely heartbreaking. So we need to be thinking about their families, praying for them, figuring out if there's ways we can support them. Wow. Autopsies conducted on the University of Idaho students on Thursday confirmed that the cause and manner of death is homicide by stabbing. The coroner said that the 4 victims were likely asleep during the attack. However, some had defensive wounds and each victim was stabbed multiple times. Moscow Police Department also determined that the sole male victim, Ethan Chapin, was visiting the home where the murders occurred. That made sense to me to think about it like that because I was like, why? Ethan probably doesn't live in a house with 5 girls. Like, I would seriously doubt that. You never know, but it's certainly possible. But I didn't think that he lived in a house with 5 girls. He might, I don't know, but it made more sense that, yeah, he was visiting probably his girlfriend, right? Who lived in the house. It was initially reported that Chapin also lived in the home. Yeah, it was reported that. And I was like, I don't think so. Police have determined that 2 other roommates who were at home at the night of the murders, along with the man seen near Goncalves and Mogan in surveillance footage at a grub truck hours before the murder, are not involved in the crime. So the man seen near Goncalves and Mogan in the surveillance footage, that guy is not involved. So the other 2 roommates and the Nike guy are not involved. So I'm interested to know why that why that is or how they know that. How would they know that? By the way, how are you guys spending your Saturday? Hopefully, you're going to be having a good day. Our Saturdays around these parts are usually pretty relaxed on the stream, a little more relaxed than normal. We like just chilling on Saturdays over here. Hey, Southern Gal Jen, thank you for your super chat. Hey, that's the first super chat of the day. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna track the biggest super chat of the day. And Southern Gal Jen, you're in the lead. $5. He probably lived with his other two siblings that went there too. He was a triplet. Yeah, that would definitely make more sense. Or a lot of, I believe he was a freshman, if I understood it correctly. A lot of campuses have their freshmen live on campus and in a dorm, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually living in the dorm. So thank you for your super chat, man. This is a fascinating case. Obviously heartbreaking. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but fascinating to figure out the motive behind why this happened, figure out even what happened. My golly. Additionally, the online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. The identity of the 911 caller has not been released. During the investigations, detectives searched 3 dumpsters on King Road to locate possible evidence. Additionally, detectives had contacted local businesses to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. There are currently no suspects in custody, and the murder weapon still hasn't been found. The update comes after the MPD released a statement after the community expressed frustration about the limited amount of information from law enforcement. We hear you. We understand your fears, said the statement. We want you to know that we, like you, have been devastated and distressed, and these young lives were cut short needlessly. Hey, Laura from Long Island, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Really appreciate that. The actual time that the murders took place is unclear at this time, but Moscow Mayor Art Becky said the students likely died between 3 and 4 a.m. Police have yet to confirm this timeline, but said that the students were believed to have arrived home after a night out sometime around 1:45. It's a Rambo style murder weapon. Former medical examiner Joseph Scott Morgan said in an exclusive interview that the at large killer may have known the 4 University of Idaho students. I think it goes without saying that this is very up close and personal. One word that I might use to describe this is very intimate. The Idaho Statesman reported that authorities have visited the Moscow building supply store and asked if they've sold anyone military grade blades by the K Bar brand. Based on his crime scene experience, Morgan, a professor and scholar of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University, said the home was likely a horrifically bloody scene. Image obtained by Fox News Digital appears to show blood dripping outside the home, a sight that Morgan says is striking. I don't know that I have sufficient verbiage for that, he said. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know if in all my years of working multiple death scenes, I've ever seen blood that is seeping outside of a residence. Oh my goodness. The police chief said that there were no signs of forced entry at the home, meaning the victims may have been familiar with the suspects. You begin to think that the perpetrator known what you begin to think was the perpetrator known so the victim would let their guard down and open the door for them. Or was someone waiting for them when they got back at the apartment? Wasn't an apartment, but they got back at the apartment and then essentially attacked them when they walked in. Morgan also questioned how familiar the suspect was with the spaces. The individual could have known the best places to lay in wait. Kernodle's dad, Jeffrey, shared that his daughter's autopsy proved she'd put up a brave fight before she died at the hands of the unknown attacker. So the Xana's autopsy showed bruises torn by the knife. She's a tough kid. Whatever she wanted to do, she could do it. The grieving father added that Xana was always in contact with her family, and he heard from her the last time around midnight, and she was fine. Oh my goodness. Again, there's a picture of those students. Absolutely heartbreaking. I know, Gene, yeah, they did need a code to get in, but I do believe that that code was pretty common knowledge. At least that's something I've heard. It's like, yeah, that code was actually like pretty common knowledge. Mhm. Mm, mm, mhm. Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for that super sticker. What a blessing. Thank you for your support. Mm, mhm. Here's an article too from the Idaho Statesman. It says Idaho murders live. Victim's sister says she called man 7 times before killings as families condemn the murders. One of the four University of Idaho students brutally stabbed to death in an off campus home, allegedly called the same man 7 times shortly before the killings. I think that's interesting for us to try to figure out who that is. Oh, I forgot. Amanda, I'm writing you down. You're the number one lead today so far. Xander Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves were found dead inside of a home in the small college town of Moscow on November 13th. Nearly a week later, no suspects have been identified. Now, Goncalves' sister, Olivia, has claimed that she made 7 calls to a man between 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m. on the night of the murders, which police believe took place between 3 and 4. That's a lot of calls. A lot of calls. Hey, Alice in Wonderland, what a blessing. Thank you so much for that super chat. Hey, you're tied. You're tied in the lead with Amanda. So thank you so much. Meanwhile, victims' families have hit out at online speculation over the mysterious murders. Jeffrey Kernodle told The Independent that the FBI was not saying anything as of Thursday and called his daughter's brutal murder his worst nightmare. A coroner's report was released Friday and it revealed the victims were likely sleeping and they were stabbed multiple times with a large knife. And so there's certainly a whole lot of bullet points. Sorry, guys, my cousin keeps texting me, so I'm having to pay attention. She sent me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 text messages in 1 minute. Um, man, these are some interesting things. Victim's father grows frustrated. My gosh. Idaho murders. Victim's father describes worst nightmares. The FBI remains silent. Food truck mystery man roommates and ex-boyfriend all ruled out as suspects in Idaho University murders. Idaho police has ruled out an ex-boyfriend, a mysterious man captured on a food truck's web camera, and 2 college roommates suspects in a shocking November 13th murder of 4 University of Idaho students. Families, friends, and community members are still searching for answers in the death and what police believe was an attack with a large knife. Murdered students were likely asleep and showed defensive wounds. Police continue searching home for clues. Wow. Well, Court TV also did an episode um, that was released last night, and so I thought we'd watch. I mean, we been keeping up with their coverage. Anyways, this is their newest episode. Their title is "Killer at Large in the University of Idaho Quadruple Murder."
Fear and terror in Moscow, Idaho. Everyone scared that a violent killer is on the loose. 4 students from the University of Idaho were murdered inside their off-campus house, all stabbed to death in the early morning hours of November 13th. 2 of the victims were last seen on video at a local food truck about a mile from their home. At the time of the murders, there were 2 more roommates in the house, but no one called 911 until noon. Why didn't the roommates hear this quadruple murder? Tonight, we take you inside the murder house and try to make some sense of what happened to these 4 young college students. I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments and trying to make some sense of something that, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense, some of the circumstances surrounding what happened to those 4 college students. It's 4 college students. And you look at that number, 4 victims and 1 knife. How does that happen? What exactly was going on? Did they know the person? Was there a conversation? How quickly was it done? Was it done in different rooms? Were they sleeping? Were they knocked out? How does one person, and they keep saying suspect, how does one person with 1 knife kill 4 people? No one got away? Were they trapped? Were they being threatened? I don't know. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me tonight, what happened in Idaho. The other part of it, you have the 4 victims. There were 2 more people living in that house. 2 other roommates, 4 people being stabbed to death. An incredibly bloody scene. I've seen pictures with the blood oozing out of the side of the house the next day. So how are 2 people inside there that didn't hear anything, didn't see anything? We know there wasn't a call until like noon the next day. And they're saying that the murder was sometime in the, middle of the night, early morning hours. But for hours, no one was called. No one knew what had happened in there except, I guess, for the killer. who took off. It's a lot of questions. But the one thing to me that is very clear is that there's a lot of fear tonight. A whole lot of fear tonight in Idaho. This is a brutal killing for innocent people, for people with so much ahead of them, just living their college life. I mean, so many of us have done exactly what they were doing, right? You're in college. Oh, this year we're going to live off campus. Or, yeah, we're going to get an apartment, a house. Yeah, 4 of us, 6 of us will get it. We'll split the rent up. We'll get something close to campus so we can walk back and forth, take our bikes, quick car ride if we need to. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We'll have a kitchen. We'll cook a little bit. We'll go out. We'll start to grow up. We'll get ready for the rest of our lives. But it didn't happen. Not for these 4. I want you to take a listen, because that fear tonight, the chief from the Moscow police speaking last night or yesterday, late in the day, take a listen to what he says here and listen closely.
We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there. We cannot say that there's no threat to the community. And as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware of your surroundings at all times.
This was significant because this was a change. This was a change from the original statement that was released. Okay, what he just said is, we cannot say there's no threat. But on November 15th, they said, based on information from the preliminary investigation, investigators believe this was an isolated, targeted attack, and there is no immediate threat to the community at large. I don't know how you can say that if you don't have a suspect. Or you do have a suspect, you just don't have him in custody. You know who did it, but he's not in custody, or she's not in custody, or they're not in custody. I believe they know a lot more than they have said. I believe that. And that was probably the reason for this original statement. But there's a killer still out there, and nobody knows who he or she or they are tonight. Let me bring in my guests. Joining me in Boise, Idaho, reporter with the Idaho Statesman, Sally Krudzig, is with us. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast. Check it out on YouTube. Mike King is with us. Great to see you, Mike. Mike, I'm going to start with Sally. Sally, describe.
For all the people that are trolls that are watching, I just want you to know that we genuinely hate that you're so just dissatisfied in life that you have to try to do something like this. But I will say we're going to pray for you right now. And what an exciting thing that we are given the privilege to have your open ears as we pray for you. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, your word says to bless those who curse us. And so I bless every single person that's been sent in opposition of what you're trying to do with this amazing group of people that you brought to my channel. And so I just declare in the name of Jesus that they would experience your goodness and your love. Amen.
Describe for me your thoughts about what the vibe is on campus, whether it's the students, the people in the community tonight, now with word that they cannot say there is not a threat to this community.
I do think there's a lot of fear on campus and the surrounding area right now. Many students have chosen to go home. Thanksgiving break is coming up, and rather than finish classes until that, many of them have gone home. We had a reporter out there knocking on doors in the neighborhood, and it was really hard to find anyone because so many of those homes are rented out by students, and they've all gone home.
They've left. I want you to take a look at Autumn Goncalves, who's the victim, one of the victim's sister, posted this on Instagram yesterday. Mike, take a look at what she said. She said, if you have friends, family, or loved ones in Moscow, our family encourages you to get them home. Police say isolated, targeted attack, but it is isolated until it isn't. No one is in custody, therefore no one is safe. Whoever did this to
I mean, yeah, if I was a parent that had a student, I would definitely be sending them home. If I was a student there, I would definitely be going home. You have no idea what the motive or the reason behind this person is. Are there some crazy person that's trying to kill a bunch of other college students? Absolutely, Gene. That's exactly what I would do as well. 100% the same thing.
My sisters, Maddie and Kaylee, Zaina and Ethan, is still out there. And if he's sick enough to murder 4 sweet, innocent humans so brutally, he is sick enough to do it to anyone else. Mike, how would you assess the current threat, either in that area, at that school, on that campus?
Yeah, I think you've got to take this serious. You've got to remind people that they are responsible for the level of risk that they're willing to take into their lives, going out late at night, traveling alone, walking out of the mall alone after dark. Vinny, take advantage of the school's security system that the university has increased the number of officers on duty now. It sounds like escorts are available to get people to and from their vehicles, but that doesn't change in daily life. We ought to be really looking at how much risk we take when we decide, oh, I know it's dark and I know there's a group of people over there or there's a suspicious looking car, but I don't want to sound stupid, so I'm going to just go and hope I get to my car in time. These things are really, really serious. And the police department, they may have stumbled a little bit in the beginning when they said there's not a threat to the community. Holy cow, if you haven't arrested somebody and they're saying he or that they're making this singular in nature, it sounds like they know that there's somebody that was responsible for this act, but they don't know who it is because they haven't made the arrest, or they haven't found them at least.
And Mike, if they knew who it was and they were trying to find that person, would they tell the public, or would there be a reason to withhold that? If they knew who they're looking for, is there ever a reason to withhold that information while you're searching for this person?
Man, what an incredibly difficult balance beam that is, isn't it? I mean, you have this interest in saving and protecting the public and alerting them and bringing this predator to justice as quickly as you can. So one side of the fence would say, absolutely, you say, we're looking for this individual. This is the kind of car we last knew them driving in. Here's where they frequent. But when you do some of those things, you put at risk the chance to gather maybe some forensics evidence or follow and watch them in patterns they're doing. But we're not looking for missing bodies here, Vinny. We're looking for a suspect that committed 4 homicides or multiple suspects, and you got to get them off the street as fast as you can.
Yeah. And Sally, what have they said about the weapon here? What do we know about the potential weapon?
So initially what we heard was it was some sort of edged weapon. We were talking to local store owners, and it turns out police have been going around asking about specific brands of military grade knives, asking, have you sold any of these types of knives recently? And then we just got the coroner's report a couple hours ago, and the coroner did confirm, yes, it was a knife that killed these students.
Mike,
the weapon, though, is still missing.
It's still missing, though, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Police have said they still do not know where it is. They're still searching for it.
All right, Mike.
Thanks, Carson, for that super chat. By the way, Lisa, I sent your gift in the mail to you to Mexico. I hope the address was correct. That's why I was trying to say if I could call you yesterday. The address that I was sending it to, the people at the post office were like, is this a real address? I'm like, I don't know. I just copy and pasted the address that you gave me. So you'll have to look at the tracking number and make sure that it's like headed your direction.
The fact that investigators are asking about specific types of knives, these military type knives, what does that tell you about the information that they've been able to gather here, even though they haven't found the weapon?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that something to say we're looking for a K-bar knife and and defining exactly what that weapon is. What gave them that information to say that's the weapon we're looking for? Enough to go to stores and say, do you sell this particular weapon? And thankfully, if they do know this piece of information, they're going to go back and be able to go to distributors and find out what locations do sell that kind of a weapon. I suspect that this weapon has been in the possession of the killer for some time before this event, and that it's going to be a pretty long shot to find video footage of them just picking it up the night of the murder or the day before.
I mean, that's a little bit hard, right? Because like you could go pay cash somewhere far away for a knife as a murder weapon, and nobody's really paying attention. It's not like you have to register and that kind of thing.
Sally, do we have any idea, like a school like this, is it mostly in-state people who are going? Are there people coming from out of state? I mean, because I'm wondering if it's a possibility that if this was a student and everyone's going home, is someone leaving the state? Any idea about the student body there?
Right. I would say this majority in-state, but then also Moscow, Idaho is right along the border of Washington. So there's also a lot of students coming in from Washington. That's probably the two states with the biggest population, but there are certainly out-of-state students as well.
So Mike, how much of a challenge is this? I mean, because I would think that it could be someone who lives locally, could be someone who is passing through, could be someone connected to the victims, could be a random student. How difficult is it when you have a university and you have a population that's there and then can disperse at any time, go back home?
Yeah, and that the university is located at a crossroads heading east, west, north, well, west, north, and south primarily. So it has arteries that are bringing a lot of folks through. There are two major highways that kind of split the downtown region, and we know that two of these kids were at a bar downtown, and I looked online and there are a batch of bars down between those two highway systems through that section of town. So you have to think about the victimology.
Well, even if you watch that Grubhub video or whatever we did where they were doing the food truck, there's so many students coming and going. I mean, there's so many students coming and going at that time of the day. So the list of potential suspects at this point is through the roof, enormous. Hey, Junebug, thank you so much for that super sticker.
But the one thing we know about victimology, and we've talked about it a bunch of times, Vinny, is that while we might say somebody who's low risk is generally hurt by somebody known to them, once they step out of that zone and start doing changing their environment or their circumstance, going out and partying all night, driving around, going to food trucks in the early morning hours, and this certainly isn't victim shaming. These kids did not deserve this.
They did exactly what we all did.
Yeah, exactly. But when you change that, you change your risk level, and that changes us from being targeted to being victims of opportunity. So
yeah, that's a good point. Like, what's the difference between being targeted versus victims of opportunity? But if I understand it correctly, is they're talking about these knife wounds and just the nature of it. Joseph Scott Morgan was saying that it was intimate. And so if it's an intimate sort of situation, then I don't think it'd be a crime of opportunity. It'd be more targeted, right? Hannah, thank you so much for that super sticker.
That's why things like what happened in that homicide, what kind of wounds are on these victims, whether they're defensive wounds or otherwise, and I think we'll probably get into some of that, but that's what's really going to start bringing this thing together.
All right, our guest, Sally Krutzig from the Idaho Statesman, Mike King, staying with us. We're going to take you inside that murder house coming up. But first, coming up next hour. Tonight, two big trials drawing to a close here on Court TV. One in L.A., where actor and star of that 70s show has been punished.
Everybody was there. Crime against Thanksgiving Day.
Have a good night. Bye. It is. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I think I would like the The carbonara. But if I have like a free grub tug on my app.
So there you see two of the victims, and that was Kaylee Goncalves ordering food at the food truck. They stream it on an app called Twitch, Grub Truckers on Twitch. So there's so much video of them there that night. And from there, here's the route that they may have taken, going from the food truck, Main Street, downtown Moscow, to their home. And it's about 1.2 miles away. Now, if you're going to walk it, it's probably about 23 minutes or so. I guess you could walk it, you could drive it, you could Uber it, however you're going to do it. But that's from where they were last seen on that video, back to the house where they were murdered. That's two of the victims. Here's the chief talking about the other two, Ethan and Zana.
As we continue our investigation, we have learned that Ethan and Zana were at a party on campus, and Madison and Kaylee were at a downtown bar. They arrived home sometime after 1:45. We know that these homicides occurred in the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th. Around noon, Moscow officers received a call of an unconscious person. Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin.
I would like to know who made that 911 call and if we could have access to that 911 call.
Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves inside the residence on King Road. The four were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
I've got some images to show you of the actual home because it was listed for rent on apartments.com, and you can see what it is. The way it's described is recently remodeled, but it was a 6-bedroom, 3-bath home. But it was 3 levels. And each level, the first level, second level, third level, described as having 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. So an interesting layout in this house, but again, multi-leveled, 3 different levels, each level with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. So 6-bed, 3-bath total. But you can see some of the images of it that were online. A nice little place for college kids. Are you kidding me? But it raises some questions, you know, both where the house is located towards the food truck, and then what's going on inside. Because as we know, 4 murder victims, but 2 other roommates also in the house. That's what's been described to us. Let's bring back in our guests, Sally Krudzig, Idaho Statesman reporter, Mike King, retired police commander, host of Profiling Evil on YouTube. Sally, do we know if Kaylee and Madison walked or drove from the food trucks back to the house that night?
So we have not had police confirmation of this, but Kaylee's sister has publicly said that they Ubered. They took an Uber to the bar.
Police came out and said a statement. I'll put it on the screen in just a second, but that Kaylee and Madison used a private party for the ride home. And a private party, I don't know if that counts as, like the statement that they made, private party. I don't know if that counts as Uber because it'd be a public company, right? So when I hear the word private party, it's like some different individual, sort of what I'm thinking.
Went to a food truck downtown and then took an Uber to their home.
And that would make sense because I think in that food truck video, you see them checking their phone. So if your Uber shows up, you're gonna check your phone and then you know when it's here. Let me ask you, Mike King, you saw the description of the house. We took you inside, 3 levels. Does that make it more possible that 2 people could have slept through a quadruple murder inside the home?
So we start thinking about the multiple entries that are into the home. It look like sliding glass doors in some rooms, whether there's a back door and a front door. certainly 3 floors, you can get some separation. And again, you think about this, college kids, and some are playing music, others are listening on their iPods and zoning out and not hearing what's going on. Some may just flat be asleep. This is different than a gunshot homicide. This is again, it's going to boil down to whether this was a horrid, aggressive, violent, multiple stab wounds kind of a thing. And I hate to be too grotesque, or was it more of an execution in each of these murders? And so that could lend one way or another whether someone was able to hear or not. But I'm not too concerned that there actually were people inside the home that didn't hear something, Vinny. It took them until noon the next day to go check on their friends and say, hey, are you going wherever we're going, and make the discovery.
Sally, this was originally, there was reporting originally that this was a crime of passion. Where did that come from? What was the genesis of that phraseology?
Right. So that originally came from the New York Times interviewed the mayor, and the mayor used that phrase, crime of passion. I spoke to him a couple hours after that, and he, was definitely pulling back on that statement. He said, I shouldn't have speculated. I was just putting out examples of what it could be. I could have said burglary. I could have said anything. I said crime of passion, but I don't know. And, I spoke to Ethan's mother, and she said she's been hurt by a lot of the rumors that have come out. People hear crime of passion, they start speculating, well, who?
I was thinking that, Miss Lacey J. It seems like between Georgia and Idaho, we've certainly been busy the past couple of months. There's a lot of action in those couple of states. I wonder why. Before all this went down, I didn't know much about Idaho. I knew about the potatoes. I knew about the cold weather. So I'm learning a little bit more, but you're exactly right.
Who was involved, and she was reading these online. She was reading, well, were the kids involved in this or that? And, she said, we just don't know. And all this speculating from the mayors or whoever isn't necessarily helpful until the police actually give us real information.
Mike, when you say crime of passion, that has a meaning. There's an attachment to it, and it would become a big part of the investigation. Is it possible investigators would speak quickly with the mayor, and then all of a sudden the mayor slipped something out that he shouldn't have slipped out? Or do you think the mayor was just speaking out of turn?
It feels like the mayor didn't know how to verbalize this horrific event, and that came to mind. If this were a crime of passion, it would most likely be focused on one individual. That means that 3 additional people just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the bad guy who's involved in this passionate murder couldn't get out without executing others. It makes you worry a whole lot more about what fantasies are going on in the predator's mind in this particular case, Vinny, that it was more systematic in nature. And holy cow.
When you say systematic, do you mean that they would have to be sleeping, or they would be in such a position that, like, they're afraid to move because he's threatening to do something and then acts quickly?
Yeah, I think we have to consider that. We have to consider that he gains control of at least 2, maybe 2 come home at a later time because we know they split up, but that somehow he gains control. And I'm saying he because the police and others have indicated the he. We don't know who it is, but that he gains control of them in some way. And I'll tell you, that control could be very easy. Listen, I'm going to just tie you up and gag you so that I can steal something. And normal people like you and me are thinking, do whatever you got to do and get out of my house. But then once he's got control, he can do it at any method and manner that he wants to do. And that's what's so frightening about these things. So you go back to, it really is going to play out to see what's learned in the autopsy, see the manner and the method of those executions. And that's going to tell us what the fantasy of this predator was, which I think will help identify who it is.
That's what he does. He profiles evil. So he's a good one to hear about all that information. Now, here's a map that somebody sent me today, and it sort of has a timeline. So we see November 12th between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. Kaylee and Maddie are at the Corner Club at 202 North Main Street. 140, they stop at the Grub Truck, 318 Main Street. 145, they make it back to the residence. That's a residence is 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. On November 12th at 10 to 11, Ethan, or 8 to 9, I mean, Ethan and Xana are at the Sigma Chi party. And by 1:45, they make it back to their residence. So it's kind of interesting that Kaylee and Maddie and Ethan and Xana all make it back home around the same time. I'm interested because they had put up uh, those pictures from inside of that apartment. I'm wondering if we can somehow figure out. Yeah, here's some photos from inside the apartment. I'm like, wonder if we can pull it up where we can look at it. Hmm. It's hard to know like which floor any of these things are on. See if there's any information about it. One of the top campus housing options, sought after location within close walking, biking, driving distance to campus in Greek Row. Ideal setup for roommates with 2 beds, 1 bath on each level. Great outdoor living and entertaining space. This 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom home has been fully renovated. Recent updates include new kitchens, 2 fully remodeled bathrooms, and newer flooring, washer, dryer, in unit. Easy living with low maintenance landscaping. Sorry, no pets allowed. Tenants responsible for all utilities. Professionally managed. And so, wonder how much the rent is. But 2 bedrooms, 1 bath on each floor. Yeah, I think that is certainly the case, Miss Lacey J. They would have had to have been terrified for sure. I mean, not just I mean, obviously for them, but everybody else that's even on campus right now. I mean, like they're or a student. I'm assuming many of them are off campus by now. Hmm. I'm looking at this article from the New York Times. Targeted killings and no arrests bring fear to the University of Idaho. Exactly what I was saying. The police say they do not have a suspect in custody and are working to document the events that lead to the death of 4 friends at an off campus housing. It says is professionally managed by Idaho something something. I already clicked off of it now. I can look it up if you need me to. Let me see. By Team Idaho Real Estate and Property Management. Yeah, it does look like a nice house. Certainly looks renovated on the inside, like they said. By the way, if you guys haven't done so yet, please hit the like button. It'd be a great way to help us out today. Help shoot us into the YouTube algorithm. Some students were packing their bags to leave town. Others who stayed behind feared the uncertainty around them. 2 days after 4 University of Idaho students were found dead at a home just outside of campus, residents had little comfort they were safe. When I was in college, there was this amazing uh, older couple that I went to church with, and this guy was like so awesome. He'd went to Guam, I think it was Guam, as a missionary, some nation like that, as a missionary, and they were like really closed off to hearing the gospel. And the king brought, or the king or the chief or whatever brought him in front of him and was like, "We're gonna kill you right now, unless you pray for the king and he's healed." And the king was like totally sick and I don't know, was dying or whatever. And so this guy that I know, this older guy that I know, prayed for this king or chief, whatever it was, and the guy was totally healed. And then he gave them permission to share the gospel or whatever and establish churches and made Christianity their religion, which is very, very powerful. And so he had done that, lived there with his wife for like 30 years or something like that. And then they retired and they had moved to Missouri where I was going to college at. And we had a small church and they were like, I don't know, in their mid 70s and leading the charge of like, hey, we need to go knock on doors. We need to share the gospel, like leading the charge like that. And one day, I don't know what happened. We know a little bit more now because they've made some arrests. Some people knocked on their door and just murdered both of them. And first they murdered the man, the husband, and keep in mind they're in their mid 70s. And then the wife like went and she called 911, went hid under the bed, and you can hear the 911 phone call. And then she was also murdered. And I remember when that happened, like we have a small church. We had no idea what the motive was, what the reason was. I was in a college town and I felt a little bit of fear. And these were, I had no idea what was going on. Now I know why they think they know why they got murdered. But I had no idea at that time. Like, was it somebody's door that we went and knocked on and invited to church? Like, we had no idea what was going on. And our whole church and our whole little, college town was a little upset about that. They apparently had been murdered because the person murdering them wanted to take their door. I guess they had like a steel door or something like that. And they wanted to take their door to be able to sell it, which is just crazy, right? And murder them over a door. The crazy things people do whenever they're on drugs. So I couldn't imagine that I just remember I was like a freshman in college and I had moved from a small town to this university town. I'd never been around that many people. And I'm like, gosh, this is wild. And this had a little bit of fear inside of me. And so I couldn't imagine if you are a college student who moved from a small town and then there's 4 of your peers that were brutally murdered and stabbed to death, the kind of fear that they're experiencing. So I totally agree with this article where it says others who stayed behind feared the uncertainty around them. Yeah, that's couldn't be a more accurate statement, you know? Hey, Mountain Kayaker, thank you so much for that. You said, I'm praying for the souls of these young adults that lost their lives so brutally. Absolutely, me too. And apparently 85% of us are willing to pray as well, because I put that as the question. I don't know why that wouldn't be a little bit higher, but apparently 15% of people don't believe in prayer, but at least 85% of us are joining you in that. Thank you for your super chat at Mountain Kayaker. Authorities are investigating the deaths on Tuesday. Said that they believe the students who were all friends were killed with a knife or some other blade, but no weapon had been recovered and no suspect is yet in custody. As students and their families pushed for more information, the police issued a new statement on Tuesday night, which they offered no new information but pleaded for patience. Chief James Fry reiterated that the killings appeared to be a targeted attack. The chief also repeated the department's assurance that there appeared to be no threat to the community, a message that has perplexed some in town as a killer remains on the loose. Before Sunday, the college town had not recorded a murder in 7 years. It's been 7 years. As classes resumed on Tuesday, some students instead were leaving the city on early Thanksgiving break. Some stayed, but they were being cautious, worried that whoever committed such a gruesome crime is still at large. And I definitely think that's the case. It feels like to me they're probably still at large. Nick Connor, a second-year student, dual majoring in food science and music composition, said it's concerning how little information was available about the attacks. Up until now, he's felt safe in Moscow, often going on walks at night. And now it's just like, I probably shouldn't do that, he says. On Tuesday, people were bringing flower bouquets and stuffed animals to a spontaneous memorial in order to honor the victims at an entrance on campus. The universities offered counseling and therapy dogs for students, but a planned candlelight visual that had been set to take place Wednesday evening was postponed until after Thanksgiving because a great number of students have already left campus. Blaine Eccles, who's the dean of the student, said in a message. Investigators are working to assemble a timeline of events that led up to the deaths of the students, 3 women and 1 man. Their bodies were discovered around midday on Sunday after someone called 911. I'm assuming one of the other roommates are the ones who called 911. Isn't that what you guys are guessing? We don't have access to that. Certainly that 911 call will become public information before too long. But I'm assuming it was one of the roommates. Obviously, if you're a roommate who stumbles upon that, I'd say very traumatized. Hey, Karen, thank you so much for that super chat. What a blessing. How are you guys doing in the chat, by the way? Let me know. Be glad to hear from you. Officials said they would focus on the activities of the victims beginning on Saturday evening into the early morning hours Sunday while pursuing leads and identifying persons of interest. The police, in their statement Tuesday night, said they were working with the Idaho State Police and Latah County Prosecutor's Office, along with other law enforcement resources, to bring about a fast resolve to this incident. But the county prosecutor, Bill Thompson, also had no leads to share. I hope that the investigators are successful in identifying who is responsible and that we have the evidence we need to hold them accountable. And there you can see some students appear to be praying, which is great. I love that. That's the best scene I've seen so far in this whole case. Here's a tweet from Sleuthy Goosey, my favorite Twitter page on all of Twitter. Moscow, Idaho confirm that Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan used a private party ride after they left the grub truck. And I'm wondering, like, I'm going to message her, like, does this count as Uber? Hey, Laura, thank you for that super chat. What a blessing. Update on the quadruple homicide. The Moscow Police Department is providing the following information to update the public on the known facts surrounding the 4 murders that occurred on November 13th. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee and Madison were at a local bar called the Corner Club at 202 North Main Street. At approximately 1:40, Kaylee and Madison were seen on video at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck. Investigators have determined that Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were seen at the Sigma Chi House at the University of Idaho campus at approximately 1:45. Ethan and Xana are believed to have returned to the residence at 1122 King Road. It was previously reported that Ethan resided at the home. However, it has been determined that he was only visiting. 2 other roommates were at the residence that night. On November 13th at 11:58 a.m., officers responded to the residence after a 911 call reported an unconscious individual upon arrival. Autopsies were conducted on November 17th. The Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 murdered individuals and their cause and manner of death as homicide by stabbing. The coroner stated that the 4 victims were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds, and each was stabbed multiple times. There was no sign of sexual assault. At this time of the investigation, the detectives do not believe the 2 surviving roommates or the male in the grub truck surveillance. Where did it go? Or the male in the grub truck surveillance are involved in this crime. Additionally, online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. The identity of the 911 caller has not been identified. Guys, isn't that really crazy, though? If you think about it, like that we've watched that grub truck footage several times, and it just didn't make sense. Like that guy clearly appears to be watching them, stalking them, moving from place to place. He's not involved at all and has no idea what actually went on. That's really hard to believe. Hey, Patty, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. It's like, I understand that they're saying that, but that one is very difficult to believe or to process. I'm like, As a part of the investigation, detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to locate possible evidence. Additionally, detectives have contacted local businesses to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. At the time of this release, detectives have received nearly 500 tips, which are being processed, investigated, and cleared. 38 interviews have been conducted with individuals who may have information about the murders. The Moscow Police Department has 4 detectives, 24 officers, and 5 support staff. The FBI has 22 investigators, 20 assigned agents, and 2 behavior analysis units. And the state police do 20 investigators, 15 troopers, and 15 uniformed troopers to assist with the community patrols. Huh. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
We're learning new details about the horrifying murders of 4 Idaho college students in their off-campus home. Police saying they've received 500 tips on the case, and the father of one of the teens stabbed to death, saying it appears his daughter tried to fight off her killer. ABC's Mola Lange has more from Idaho.
This morning, police releasing new details in the gruesome killing of 4 college students at an off-campus apartment near the University of Idaho. Authorities now mapping the movements of those students prior to what they are calling a targeted attack. The timeline shows Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan at a food truck in downtown Moscow early Sunday morning. 5 minutes later, they arrive home by car service. Authorities also put Ethan Chapin and Zaina Kernodle at a fraternity party earlier that night, all making it home by 1:45 a.m. Nearly 8 hours later, a 911 call.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
Police have still not named a suspect, but this morning they are confirming significant details from the coroner, saying the 4 victims were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds, and all were stabbed multiple times. The coroner also confirming to ABC News they were killed using a large knife.
Our detectives have gone out to local businesses to see if some type of knife was purchased in the recent past.
This TikTok video shows Kaylee, Madison, and Zaina inside that home just weeks earlier. The 2 other roommates who...
You think it's pronounced Zaina or Xana? Yeah, Miss Lacey J, the red swoosh guy is very sus. Let's pull that up again in just a minute, because I know they're saying he's cleared, but it just doesn't make sense.
Survived the attack also in the video. They have not been identified by police. We're blurring their faces. Police saying at this time they do not believe they are involved in this crime. ABC News has learned those survivors did not make the call to 911. A family spokesperson for one of those roommates telling us exclusively she is traumatized and working with the FBI, and the victims' families still looking for answers. 20-year-old Zaina Kernodle's father telling a local Arizona news station that he believes his daughter fought her killer to the very end.
Bruises and just, maybe hurt by the knife or whatever. She's a tough kid.
My gosh, it's so hard to hear this. Bruises by the knife, she's a tough kid. My gosh, that's really hard to hear.
Whatever she wanted to do, she could do it.
And the killings of these 40 University of Idaho students here at this house has shaken this tight-knit community. Police have increased their presence and patrols around town, and they continue telling residents to be aware of their surroundings and be vigilant, guys.
All right, Mola Lange there. Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA. Now we begin. And with the devastating and mysterious murders of 4 University of Idaho students that have gripped the nation. An elite federal unit has now joined the search for the killer as we learn new and chilling details about the case. Zaina Kernodle, her boyfriend Ethan Chapin.
Now they're saying Zana. I guess there's a lot of ways to say that name.
Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan were found stabbed to death early Sunday morning in the house they shared. Police have still not identified a suspect or a person of interest. They say all 4 returned home around 1:45 in the morning on Sunday after a night out with friends. Kaylee and Madison were actually captured on this video you're looking at here outside a food truck just hours before they were killed. And police say the footage may hold vital clues. We are also learning that 2 other roommates were home at the time of the murders. Investigators are speaking with those 2 students, with Idaho State Police saying that they are, quote, potentially the key to this whole thing. Meantime, the heartbroken father of Zaina Kernodle has revealed that his daughter's body showed signs she had tried to defend herself.
Heartbreaking. Lula, thank you for your super chat. You said the jacket that one of the girls in line at the food truck had on was awfully big. Wonders whose it was. Well, we'll check that out. Sometimes oversized jackets are a little bit of the fashion trend. I don't know for sure on her. We'll check it out for sure. Thank you for your super chat.
From her killer. And Kaylee Gonsalves' sister warned other students on her Instagram account, no one is in custody and therefore no one is safe. Julie, this whole story, so tragic. The more we learn simply raises more questions as well. And I have to set the scene a little bit because I went to college nearby there, and we would go visit University of Idaho often because it's just across the border from Washington State University. Moscow, Idaho has a
How many students attend Washington State University? I'm gonna look it up real fast because I think Washington State University, I mean, it's just across the border. I think it's a little bit larger than Idaho. Let me see. Total students at Washington State University, 24,000 undergraduate students. When you consider postgraduates and doctoral students, it's 28,000. And then when you look at the University of Idaho, it's like 10,000. So in that one little cluster, there's 30,000 or so students, which is pretty significant.
population normally of about 25,000, 12,000 plus of that is the college population. They just had their largest incoming freshman class of all time in 2022. And now, however, the campus is a ghost town with most students having fled home after this horrible tragedy.
Yeah, first of all, sorority life is huge. I mean, sorority and fraternity life is huge. So obviously it's a party town. A lot of these homes have parties, but that's nothing new. Every college town with a sorority and a fraternity house has parties. But the timeline is really scary because, first of all, Zana's father actually said that they spoke on the phone at midnight. That's the last time he spoke with her, and she was perfectly fine. And now in that video, you see two of the girls. They were actually at a food truck at 1:45 in the morning getting pasta. They had a 1 mile walk home. But in that video, this is where I think that investigators are going to find answers, because there were a couple guys that were in the area, kind of off in the distance, silently kind of following them, but they didn't get video of them, obviously, on that walk home. It's also interesting to note
It wasn't a walk home. They had a ride home.
that it seems that obviously the edged object, the weapon, was a knife, and that the same knife was used in all of the murders. So the question is, was one or two people involved? That leads to possibly, most likely, the murder weapon likely was used by one person. There could be an accomplice, but if it was one knife, the coroner says that that same knife was the knife that was used for all four murders. Likely one knife is what the coroner is saying, that in his investigation, that it seems that the knife wounds were done by the same weapon. So now it's a question of how in the world did they get in? The father says that there's a combination on the lock on the front. So somehow maybe they got around the side and the sliding glass door was open, he suspects. But it's really concerning. And I absolutely think that the school should lock down until they catch whoever or whomever, one or two people or more did this.
So many unanswered questions. And Kaylee, 3 of those victims are from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. That's also a small community. And this town, to your point, yeah, it is a college town, but it's small. It is close knit. It was cold there on that night. And there's a lot of sort of really tragic and heartbreaking images coming out of this, the footage that we have, blood dripping out of the side of the home. I can't imagine what these families are going through. And to Julie's point, there are a lot of, I would say, complexities or sort of haziness around the circumstances that we have yet to learn, that perhaps are exacerbated because it's a college town, right? If you're out and you're having a beer and then you get pasta at 2 a.m. and you stumble home and you're sleeping late as the roommates, there are a lot of factors here that we don't yet know about for sure, but that might be in part contributing to the questions police have and to the fact that there aren't yet any clear-cut answers how the person got in, why X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yes, which is why, as one of the parents, or I think multiple family members have said, there's no room for speculation here. By all accounts, these kids were just kids trying to have, a normal night on a college campus, and then this happened. So the speculation, I think, needs to go. As we do on this show often, it's important to talk about the victims, and you've said their names many times. But one of the moms who hosted a vigil, not a mom of one of these victims, but a mom who knew the victim.
I really like her cross necklace.
Personally through her daughter, said that they were vibrant and wild, carefree and loving. We know the bright stars they were here on this earth. They're upstairs looking down on us now. Every single one of them are the most amazing kids I have ever met in my life. Every account says these kids were just really, really great kids. It obviously should have never happened to them. And what one police officer said is the worst scene he's ever seen in his entire life.
Has to be pretty bad. The worst scene, and then on that Court TV segment that we were watching, they said blood was seeping out of the house. It's a total, literally bloodbath in there. It's hard to even process how this thing could have happened.
My question is your question about this murder weapon.
Yeah.
It is it raises a lot of questions that it was one knife. It makes you think, was there more than one person? Or it was likely one knife, they say, not confirmed yet. But this, if it was one person, they had to be skilled at using a weapon because one of the fathers said my daughter was fighting back. And to do that to 4 people, if there was one weapon and one person, I would think that that at least narrows down a little bit that this had to be someone who knew how to use
No,
a
that's a
weapon.
great point, though, regarding it being one person, because one person able to take down 4 people, one of them was a boyfriend. So it wasn't just girls, there was a guy.
I mean, yeah, if it's one person, I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, they're asleep. So one person snuck in while they're all sleeping. So it's not like it was 1 versus 4. It was 1 versus 1 sleeping person at a time.
Guy there too. I would have a hard time believing only one person was involved. That's my hunch.
Right. And I have to say, there are so many potential factors that can lead to a circumstance where people are compromised in some way. So as we sit and sort of say, okay, well, 4 people on one, that seems clear. Not that that's what you're saying, but there are many things that could compromise an individual. One of the most horrifying attack stories I heard involved a
I'm just thinking about how heartbreaking it was for the other roommates who were upstairs in the house, right? And they wake up Sunday 11 a.m. or whatever time, or noon, come downstairs and like look for their friends, and they seen what police officers who are used to investigating this horrifying stuff say is the worst thing they ever seen. How traumatizing it has to be for the other 2 girls that are living in the house. I mean, we really need to consider that and continue to pray for them, because it's absolutely mind-boggling, heartbreaking, all of the above, that these 2 college girls walked in and saw this, and then probably are going down the whole survivor's guilt path, wondering how come it didn't happen to them, other than they were on the top floor. My goodness.
couple where the husband, they were being attacked. The husband was a firefighter and a CrossFit instructor, and yet he needed help from the wife, because in those moments, there are certain injuries if you sustain and that all of a sudden you're rendered vulnerable, you have one hand. Those circumstances are just absolutely frightening, and where you're truly fighting for your life.
That's right.
What does it say to you that the FBI has now deployed this elite unit? We are now pooling resources. It expands then the resources on the part of the state of Idaho into the federal connection, which means not only networking and connections, but also the caliber. It means the resources that Idaho has tapped into now is the utmost elite as well as innumerable.
That's right. And I think it shows that they're concerned about an ongoing threat. Right. At first, the police came out and said this had been targeted. They didn't think there was a threat to the wider community. And now they're saying maybe that's not true. Maybe there is a wider threat. The FBI can certainly help with that, particularly across state lines, as we know where this university is located. But this week has just been so awful. You know, college kids have a hard time right now. We've seen this tragedy, the tragedy at the University of Virginia, my alma mater, which has just been racked by the killing of these 3 football players. College kids have a lot to cope with right now. And like you said, Julie, this was a happy place. This was a party school, you know, very good school, but one where people went to have fun. And just to have this happen to these young people, and especially if there is a wider threat still at large, that is so scary for these kids who are still dealing with so much in their lives beyond this. They shouldn't have to deal at 20, have to wonder if there's a threat in their community.
Yeah, that's right. Our hearts go out absolutely to that Vandals community, which we love. Dr. Siegel, I want to get your input on this specifically. The forensic pathologist came out and commented. We'll get your thoughts on the other side.
The other 2 roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information we have from our investigation is that, yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That is correct.
When there's this many stab wounds and there's a lot of blood is very slippery, and sometimes the perpetrator is cut by the slippage of the knife, and some of the blood at the scene can belong to the perpetrator, and DNA will be able to evaluate that.
So, doctor, the relevant part of that video was that second half where he said sometimes the blood essentially could mix and we could ID the perp through the blood. What else can we look forward to learning from that crime scene from a forensics pathology perspective?
Number one, no better forensic pathologist than who you just saw, our own Dr. Michael Baden, the best in the country. Number two, his point is that DNA analysis is going to tell us a lot. Blood is slippery. We may see some evidence, DNA evidence of one perpetrator or two. To Julie's point, I think two is more likely because somebody had to hold these people down while this was going on. Dr. Baden also said we can tell the time of death and we can see if this was over a certain period of time. Was there a sequence? I'll tell you what I've written a lot about, which is the fight or flight response. You're there and this is happening to you, you freeze. And so that doesn't.
Yeah, for some people, that's going to be their response. Sounds like for Zaina, or however you say her name, her response was the fight mode. But I think, yes, some people definitely froze. And they're sleeping anyways.
Help the victims, unfortunately. There's the escape mechanism. We kind of wonder why they didn't try to run away, or maybe they did try to run away and one was struggling. But we're going to be able to tell a lot about the weapon, about the time of death. They may be able to identify the perpetrator as a result of all of this investigation. Those witnesses are key. And the other thing Dr. Baden said is the police don't always reveal what they know, Emily, and you know this. Right. So they may know more than they're saying. And I also agree with the point that they should lock this place down. I've been there. This is God's country. You live near there. This is a beautiful place. A shock to suddenly have it interrupted like this. And it needs to be closed down for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great conversation. And Kaylee, I really appreciate your perspective too. Remembering those victims was 4 beautiful kids. They're kids. Our heart goes out to them and their families.
Wow, I know a lot of you guys have already seen the footage, but I want to pull up the footage of the food truck again, just because it's peculiar to me.
Sonia's not here. If that's everything for you, $8.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course. Cheese and bacon, please. Yeah. Burrito with pork.
And there's a lot of students there for the time of the night it is. Didn't they say this was like at 1:30 in the morning? There's a lot of people still awake hanging out at 1:30 in the morning.
Chipotle. There. And then what is the time on that?
Thank you. It's been
$12, so it's just going to be rewards.
Enjoy.
And it looks like you do not quite have enough.
People, so.
Oh, it's pretty fun, honestly. No, it's amusing though.
Okay, they just arrived. You just saw them walk up
Good night.
in this top left quadrant. And even the way I know that they're saying that they've identified the guy and he's not a suspect or whatever, we don't know why. But let's just analyze it again and just figure out if we think there's something going on with it that's a little bit confusing. If there's anything that sticks out, because we have talked about this a lot. It's hard for us, at least from my perspective, just be like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, are you kidding me? It looks like to be a pretty big deal to me.
Somebody in their group is
They
usually
walk up.
for him.
Yeah. I mean, that didn't make up for it, but like.
There they are. You just saw them make an entrance. The guy is in between the two girls.
It's amusing.
And
it's fun.
it seems like they know him, right? That's my guess now. Like, did he go with them from the party to this food truck spot? Looks like he's in between them. Then he goes back and stands here.
Hello.
He sort of does a weird maneuver where it looks like he realizes there's a camera. Turns here. Uh-oh, it's totally, that's just totally what it appears to me as if, I better turn my hat around and put my hood on. There it is. I mean, how could we not watch that and think that there's some level of like identity coverage trying to go on there? You know what I mean? Like, it just totally appears like he's trying to cover himself. Then puts the hood on, and walks over here. Looked like he was in line to get some food a little bit. And Ben's like, nope, I'm just going to come stand over here. I mean, this is just weird. It's odd behavior to say the least. It's odd behavior to say the least.
But if I have like a free grub tug on my app.
Oh, yep. So what you want to do is we'll actually do this. There you go.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
How many more do you need? That's the second one? Awesome.
Dawn's mom.
Oh, wait. Yeah, one more.
It does kind of feel like her jacket's a little large, like as in not her own. Yeah, the hoodie guy was clear to not consider a suspect anymore. That's what they're saying, but I still find his behavior weird, so I want to see that. Nicole says he also seems to stand just far enough from the camera that he has to be close to, otherwise he stays out of camera view. It's very interesting. It's just suspicious. I know they said they've cleared him or whatever, but I don't know. We're watching him. He's right up here. I don't know why. I don't know how he's cleared. He has some explaining to do with his behavior. He totally appears as if he's stalking these girls.
Right here.
And maybe he was trying to protect the girls. Maybe the girls were threatened. And so he followed them there to sort of keep an eye on. We don't know. Could be that. These girls could have been under a threat. That could have been an undercover law enforcement for all we know. And then he made sure they got home or something. We don't know. Or maybe he's just a friend looking out for him. Who knows? I mean, there's a couple of explanations, but one explanation that doesn't make sense would be that it's just pure coincidence that he arrived at the same time as them, stood from behind them watching every single thing they did, moved when they moved, and left when they left, and bought no food at a food truck at 1:30 in the morning. So the fact that it would just be a pure coincidence seems almost impossible to me. The fact that there could be some levels of explanation of why he was there, okay, that makes more sense. He actually was there for protection. He was undercover law enforcement. He was handling some threats that maybe have been going on campus. Maybe he knows something we don't know, or maybe he's stalking them. I mean, there's a few options, but it certainly is a strange situation.
And then what was the Mac?
Don't forget to remove the spoon.
The carbonara Mac of the week.
Here, I'll grab it for you.
Excellent. And then click see rewards.
Enjoy.
And it looks like you do not quite have enough points yet.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
$10 for you.
Perfect.
Huh. Sorry, I need to put that bigger for you guys to see.
I do have a big burrito pork here for you.
Cool. Thank you.
47. Thank you very much. Where'd the pen go, guys? Where's my pen? How are you guys doing?
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I seem to have lost my pen, but that's fine. What can I get for you?
Okay, you guys saw that. They moved, he moved. Look, as soon as she's done paying, watch.
Where'd the pen
There
go,
he goes.
Guys? Where's my pen? How are you guys doing?
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I seem to have lost
He's not
my pen.
interacting with them,
What can
which
I get
is
for you?
Can I?
strange. He's just standing near them.
Definitely.
I get thank you.
And then,
Pork tacos.
Oh yeah. How many pork tacos would you like?
Just come with one.
It's one, but they're like 6 to 7 ounce tacos. They're not like small little street tacos. I normally eat 2, 3 is a lot for me.
So one would be fine if I was getting pasta or
Yeah.
mac and cheese too.
Yeah, that's gonna be
I better
almost 2 pounds of
I
food.
better get.
I don't know, Evil Concept, you say the amount of law enforcement and FBI involved, it seems way bigger than Hoodie Guy and Serial Killer. You'd think that, but there were 200 law enforcement assigned to Kylie Rodney's case, including over 50 full-time FBI agents involved in her case. And it turned out to be she drove in the water. So, I mean, we really never know. The fact that there's so many people assigned to it is probably a bigger sign that we have no idea what's going on.
Okay, you got it. 2 pork tacos? Done. 1 5 cheese, 1 basil pesto, 2 pork tacos, $24.50 for you.
Sweet, thank you. 2 Don's Moms.
Again, he's just standing out there, sort of like watching them, it appears.
79. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna do this. Hold on. If we decide,
Yeah.
since we listed.
Oh,
At
people,
some point, he
people have
starts
fallen.
bowing down to the
People have fallen over reduce for you. Sorry, I'm
guy in the
talking
tank
to a
top.
stranger. Oh, you're so good. Absolutely. Thank you. How are you doing? Pretty good. How about yourself? I'm doing extremely well. What sounds good? Can I get a big burrito? Yeah. For the big burrito, would you like pork or chicken? Chicken. Got it. And then you said a Mountain Dew? Yes, please. Excellent. Big burrito chicken and a Mountain Dew. We're going to do $11. There's Mountain Dew and order 80. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello.
I need 2 chicken burritos with extra slaw.
2 chicken burritos with extra.
Very interesting. He's very sus to me. He moves with them. He's keeping eyes on them. He appears to be watching them. He never buys any food. That's another thing that's really weird. Why would he go to this food truck at 1:30 in the morning if he's not getting food? He arrives with these girls who happen to be murdered 2 hours later.
$19 for you.
I know I have a $6 waiting for me. I would like to use it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So,
What's your reward?
there you
Oh,
go.
fuck, I just hit your jacket. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
$13. Hell yeah.
Worth it.
Oh, always. Order 81.
Thank you.
Thank you. Extra slaw? Is that a charge? No, it's not a charge. It's just a modifier. Hello.
They have Apple Pay.
How's
We
your
have
night going?
Apple Pay, right?
Of course we do.
Of course you have Apple Pay. Yes. Hi, camera. Okay.
Chicken taco.
Now that one guy's,
Got it.
I'll
talking
do
to
the
him.
5 cheese mac and cheese, please.
Okay.
I know you're freezing.
No, please, please. No, I'm getting it no matter what. Like, please, he's waiting. We'll do it 2 5 cheese mac.
Like, I'm adding 2 or you're making it, it's now 2?
Oh,
Sorry.
2.
You're adding 2. Excellent. Gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
If that dude's not there to get food, what is he there for?
Okay.
You got it. So I have a chicken taco and 3 5 cheese mac and cheeses. Okay. $27.75.
Hey. Hey.
How many apples in the Mac of the week? 0, TJ.
All of them.
0.
Don't let them lie to you.
Order 82. Thank you. And people are saying that the girls took Uber home, but the police didn't say Uber. For example, they said a private ride. And it makes me think, too, that one of the potential suspects would be whoever that driver was of the Uber or whatever, so they're not coming out and saying Uber. Because I don't know what would be their motive of them not coming out outright and just saying what it was that they were using. Do you know that, Carrie? Can you send me a source that says that? Because, I mean, that sounds like an interesting statement, but if we have a source, that would be good to know. And if that's true, then he's not having any interaction with the girls. He's just spying on them.
Can I get?
We already got it by cheese.
Wait, you got one? Oh my God. Can I get a Macafire?
You got it, man.
Like if that was true, wouldn't the girls be like, "Hey, we got our food. We're headed home now"?
Absolutely.
Yes, let's go.
Not only that, the girls leave as soon as they get their food. If they, you'd think they'd have to call an Uber, right? Or the chances that their food would be ready as soon as their Uber is ready. That doesn't add up.
Order 83.
Perfect. Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right, and then it's all on you. I was letting go.
Time to start the old car. It's been a while since this engine started. Let's see if it starts. Oh great, the battery
My
is
first time
dead.
was when we went to
Well,
the grocery
better luck
store
next
to buy
time.
donuts.
For what?
First time I used, well, NFC. I don't have an Apple device, so it wasn't Apple Pay. I was desperate.
For donuts?
For donuts, yes.
Never use like a phone NFC pay. I guess unless you count the tap on the card.
Wait, say that again?
Never use my phone until at like a store.
Oh, really?
Always had my cards.
Okay. It's because you're too prepared, Derek.
It's because I try not to forget my wallet. It's a good reason.
That's
not
smart,
to
Derek.
forget
It's
your
probably
wallet.
good to not lose your wallet. Guys, fuck yeah, great ticket times. Honestly, like Luke, Tebow, really solid. Love it. Very
So,
pleased.
Joe,
All
how
right,
close are we
back
to
in.
you sitting down on Friday nights?
I mean, that was a solid rush. It's a good thing that it ended, but this is Friday and Saturday in a row that got you down round one. So I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot, guys.
Guess he's gonna fucking need extra slot a second. This bad boy.
Tebow's thinking to himself, if I start slowing down on Meg, maybe I'll get to sit down. He's gonna try to sabotage me.
I actually was wondering if I was.
Rhonda, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Thank you.
That's what I was scared of.
Nope.
Yes, let that fear.
You guys know, like, the highest ticket time I saw was 13 minutes,
Sorry.
which is, I'm very satisfied. You guys have worked on the truck, and Derek and I have been the ones on Grill and Mac, and we've had longer ticket times than that. Like, you're doing well.
Really? I got news for you.
Hell yeah. All right, what did I miss? Reduce, reuse, lol. Yeah. Fuck yeah, dude.
That gets on my nerves. And then, like, they want their numbers to be called.
Are you knowing the that movie was super popular? No. Tomahawks, what's the side for? How are you? How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing extremely well. What sounds good?
Yes, the death by garlic and add chicken to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Mickey Duff,
Death
thank
by
you for that
garlic.
super
We'll
sticker.
add chicken
What a
to it.
blessing.
Anything else
Thank
for
you.
And then can I do the 5 cheese?
And 5 cheese?
Yes. And can I add chicken to that?
Of course. We're doing death by garlic with chicken, 5 cheese with chicken. Anything else? Love it. $23.
There's that picture.
Do you guys have any NFC go Ben? Any whatever sort of payment you have on your phone, we can take. Order 84. Thank you. We do not have the scan one though. So like if you're trying to pay with CashApp, you have to like scan a thing. We don't have any sort of QR crap. How are you doing?
Sorry, good.
Oh, no. Good. Excellent. Sorry. What can I get you?
Can I get 2 chicken tacos?
2 chicken tacos. You got it.
What big burrito? Chicken.
$7.50 if that's everything for you.
Any slides?
Yeah, slide, tap, insert, facing you with the chip, any other. Order 85. Thank you.
Can I do the big burrito? But I'm really picky on some
Cheese sauce.
Can I get it with that? That's Chipotle slaw.
Yes, you absolutely
And
can.
then
No slaw.
without the onion salsa.
No salsa.
They're gone.
And do you guys have sour cream? Get it with that.
It's interesting too
Insert,
because these
facing
girls
you
take the
with chip,
picture,
any other.
and then the big dude who's talking to the guy. Watch this. You can see that this guy's kind of got an eye on these girls, right? And it just so happens that he points at the girls. The girls seem to hurry off. Look at her. She looks like she's running, doesn't it? Watch this.
Order 85.
Looks like she either stumbling and running, and so he's looking away, and then this other guy comes up to get his food, and when he does, there's major distraction. The hoodie guy looks around and then takes off pretty fast. He doesn't say bye to the guy that he stood there talking to. He sort of waves, it looks like, at the girls or something, and then he continues to walk, and he does go around the building, and I don't know why he's going that way. It's not the same place, but I don't know how the parking situation is there. Maybe we can pull that up real fast on the map, because I think I have the address to that food truck place. 318 South Main Street. So let's just type that in. 318 South Main Street, Moscow, Idaho. Let's look at it on the map and see. County Republicans, bagel. I don't know where the food truck is in conjunction to this. It's hard to tell. Let's see what Mike King says about this.
Saying it could help them establish a timeline of events that night. The president of the University of Idaho, emotional.
They were bright lights in our community.
Hang on.
And
don't like the fact that they're refining this down to a single predator when they're openly suggesting that they don't know who the predator is. I mean, there could be multiple predators, but there certainly would be evidence to support if there were multiple predators that took part in the slaying of these victims. So that's going to be kind of interesting. We also know that they believe there was a single person, and that single person was using a K-bar knife. That's really significant to me, and I don't know where it's coming from and why the police are saying it, but we can chalk it up to one of those things that we know right now. And we know this. We know that there were two other roommates in the home at the time of the murder, and they weren't hurt. What we don't know is why weren't they hurt? Why weren't they able to hear what was going on? And this, of course, leads me and many of you, as I'm reading through these, to speculate further about what happened in the course of those homicides. I mean, was there a single intended victim and all the others simply got in the way and the killer had to silence them? Or perhaps it was a 2 and 2. The girls came home, a predator killed the girls. In the course of committing those homicides, the other two victims walked in the door and had to be killed as well. Is it possible they stumbled onto a burglary in progress and the offender, instead of running out the door, killed everyone? It's possible, but I don't think it's probable based on what we're learning. And frankly, how did this offender get control of 4 people?
I mean, the only thing I could think about the offender getting control of the 4 people is because the 4 people were asleep.
We don't know if there were signs of an attempt to escape or fight, or if these victims died in their beds. And maybe some of you are hearing, especially locally, some things that the rest of us are not. But here's some great video from the food truck streaming, and I want you to watch it. And many of you are asking, is it possible somebody is in the wings watching them? Let's see. Now there's audio if you go online. I just decided not to put it on here and just to stick this in here. But again, kind of interesting. Everything looks pretty casual, and everybody looks pretty casual. And frankly, in a town this small, and the way everyone was acting like they knew each other, they're going to be able to identify quickly who everyone is that's at that place, including if they in fact did get an Uber ride, who the Uber driver was. Jeannie Nash, thank you so much for that donation. That's really helpful. We do not know so many darn things, but let's see what else we've got here. Gene's Panic is saying, I wonder if there was more than one killer and they were hiding in the house waiting to do the killings. Boy, yeah, all of those questions, it's just so hard to know what to think on that. So here's an interesting question. Magali R says, can you define crime of passion? So there's a defense, and Michelle may jump in and clean up my language here as I define this, but crime of passion kind of fits the old devil made me do it kind of thing. I was confronted by someone and they did something that was so offensive. They called my brother a foul name, and I was so angry without even thinking that I punched him in the face. And so you can charge me with assault, but you need to understand the devil made me do it. I mean, it was just a response. It was a passionate kind of thing. Now you can aggravate that in many ways, that a predator could turn on someone who he had been in a domestic relationship, or she had been in a domestic relationship and been jaded, and they decide to inflict some kind of damage. Think about when you yourself have been a little bit angry about something and you've said something that you were absolutely sure was going to really taste good when it came off of your tongue. And as soon as you said it, you thought to yourself, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. Well, that's a moment of passion, a heat of passion. So that's really kind of what it boils around. And I'm going to just see, call me out, Michelle, if legally you'd like to describe that a little differently. But we see these crimes of passion, and we see the aggravation in them. Oftentimes, like when we see really focused assaults on the face or other things, it really gives us an idea of what the emotion is. And you think about it, we have these things, this form of communication that we all take part in. We have verbal, nonverbal, and sexual communication. And so I could say to one of you, if we had a camera on you, I want you to act out like you're mad without saying a word. And you might pull a mean face, or you might grit your teeth. That's a nonverbal communication. Verbally, you might say something. People, when they act out in sexual crimes, they communicate through sexual things. So
is he trying to say that this is a crime of passion or not? He's talking a long time.
Behaviors that we study in these kinds of cases. Now, I want to.
By the way, I'll put a link to his video in case anybody wants to watch it. Put it in the chat.
Jump in and look at. Oh, here we go. Michelle, let's see what she said. Very nice, Mike. So there's a big difference between spontaneous reaction crime of passion versus passionately personal. Yeah. And I hope I made that clear, but thank you so much for clarifying that. Yeah, you scared me and I punched you. That's not a crime of passion, but you called my brother a son of a gun and I punched you would be a crime of passion. And you know, I then take someone that I've been really angry at for years, and I finally have had enough, and I meet him in an alley and I beat him. That's a different form of a crime of passion. So hopefully that kind of helps through all of that. So let's see. Thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that. Be sure to like, folks. We do like the likes. Now, in this video of the layout of the home, I want you just to pay kind of close attention. Vinny and Sally and I talked about those modes of transportation, the home's layout. And again, this is the interior of the home from a for sale period. Some of you mentioned the sliding door. I actually mentioned it in the video that comes up. I don't know if there's a backdoor entry and a basement entry, but again, there are 3 floors, 2 bedrooms, and a single bath on each of the 3 floors. So every 2 rooms share a bath. And that kind of gives you a sense of what that looked like. So we'll just go right into a court TV segment after we talk about this.
Somebody knows something.
Where we kind of talk about it in a little more detail, especially about why the residents that were in the home weren't murdered or why they didn't hear what happened. I'm kind of winding down, but Vinny asked my thoughts about crime of passion. You guys have asked about that, but most importantly, the comment crime of passion by the mayor. And I think I made it pretty darn clear earlier that I wasn't too impressed with that characterization, but I added these kinds of thoughts into the video.
Is that, I mean, Mike, when you say crime of passion, that has a meaning. I mean, there's an attachment to it, and it would become a big part of the investigation. Is it possible investigators would speak quickly with the mayor, and then all of a sudden the mayor slipped something out that he shouldn't have slipped out? Or do you think the mayor was just speaking out of turn?
It feels like the mayor didn't know how to verbalize this horrific event, and that came to mind. If this were a crime of passion, it would most likely be focused on one individual. That means that 3 additional people just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the bad guy who's involved in this passionate murder couldn't get out without executing others. It makes you worry a whole lot more about what fantasies are going on in the predator's mind in this particular case, Vinny, that it was more systematic in nature. And holy cow.
When you say systematic, do you mean that they would have to be sleeping, or they would be in such a position that like they're afraid to move because he's threatening to do something and then acts quickly?
Yeah, I think we have to consider that. We have to consider that he gains control of at least 2, maybe 2 come home at a later time because we know they split up, but that somehow he gains control. And I'm saying he because the police and others have indicated the he. We don't know who it is, but that he gains control of them in some way. And I'll tell you, that control could be very easy. Listen, I'm going to just tie you up and gag you so that I can steal something. And normal people like you and me are thinking, do whatever you got to do and get out of my house. But then once he's got control, he can do it in any method and manner that he wants to do. And that's what's so frightening about these things. So you go back to, it really is going to play out to see what's learned in the autopsy, see the manner and the method of those executions. And that's going to tell us what the fantasy of this predator was, which I think will help identify who it is.
All right, Mike King, Profiling Evil Podcast. Great to have you on tonight. Appreciate your time and insight.
That Vinny is such a good guy and so kind to me, and I really appreciate the chance. I don't know, folks, if you don't subscribe to Court TV, please do. And please watch for me. I make usually about 1 or 2 appearances a week, depending on the crime, and they just are all so darn good to me. So thank you. Sedona Skies, thank you for that kind donation. Really helps, and really appreciate it. And Deb Jackson Smith, thank you. Appreciate that, and appreciate all of you. I appreciate the questions that have been coming in tonight. I think we're having some really good discussion. Alexis, how do you say your last name there, Alexis? Is it Zervanak? Zervanak? Anyway, let me know sometimes. Spell it out phonetically for me. College students always sleep late, especially on weekends. Noon doesn't seem surprising to me. I slept from grad school until I had no choice. Well, amen. I think that when you are in school, you have to know. Does that tell you a little bit about me?
The four were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon.
Some time chatting and going through these. Michelle Lemon, thank you so darn much. I appreciate what you just did there, and thank you. I appreciate that you appreciate the work we're putting into things here. We really do try to
was it a serial killer, or
do you guys think it was a serial killer or somebody they knew? It's a great question from Inside Edition.
someone they knew? One of the nation's top criminal profilers, Dr. Casey Jordan, is weighing in.
You could have somebody who is a potential serial killer who has been thinking about doing something like this for a very long time. If the fantasy was fulfilled, then the fantasy will bloom even larger. And very often you're going to find a perpetrator who feels compelled to do it again.
But Dr. Jordan says another, perhaps stronger possibility, they were acquaintances.
Could this have been a fellow student?
Statistically, it's most likely to be someone from that community. Most likely to be a fellow student, somebody who may have been in the house before or invited into the house even in those early morning hours, perhaps by one of the victims.
Well, they would have been invited into the early morning hours, right? Because nobody was there till 1:45 in the morning unless they got invited in then.
We can't rule that out.
The use of a large knife, possibly a Rambo-style combat knife like this, is also telling.
We can't rule out the fact that there's a sexual nature to it. In criminology, we often talk about piquerism, the use of an assailant who is stabbing with a knife, if you will, as a substitute for sexual activity, sometimes because of their lack of ability to perform.
Wow. And what about the two
That's super weird.
roommates who survived? Jordan finds it completely plausible that they didn't hear anything.
A lot has been made about the fact that there were two female roommates in the house that didn't hear anything. It makes sense that the victims were sleeping, caught by surprise, and perhaps the stabbing quieted them instantly so that each one of them didn't even know what had happened to the others, and the two roommates who survived had no idea until they woke up at noon the next day what had happened. I think these roommates are traumatized. I don't think they had anything to do with this attack.
How difficult of a case is this one to solve?
I agree. I think those roommates are traumatized.
It could be very difficult to solve, mostly because if you don't catch them within the first 48 hours and they've left town and you don't have any DNA evidence, they could be anywhere at any time thinking about doing it again.
Do you think they have any DNA evidence? These are great questions.
I've been here in Moscow on scene since about 3 p.m. Since I've been here, I've watched Moscow police cars come in and out of this neighborhood, where officials found 4 people dead. Neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12 p.m. today. Moscow police say they responded to a call here on King Road for an unconscious individual. Upon further investigation, officials found 4 people dead. While police investigated the scene, the University of Idaho enacted a shelter-in-place alert as university officials reported a homicide near campus. As we've stated, that alert is lifted at this time. Neighbors say most people living in this area are a part of U of I Greek life or are students, but we do not know the identities of those involved or who lives at the residence. Officials are investigating. This is a very much developing situation, and we will continue to stay on the grounds until we have more information to report back to you. Until then, in Moscow, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
So police still have this house here near University of Idaho taped off. This right here is where officers found 4 bodies yesterday. We now know the names of those 4 students. They were 20-year-old Ethan Chapin from Conway, Washington, 21-year-old Madison Mogan from Coeur d'Alene, 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves from Rathdrum, Idaho, and 20-year-old Dana Kernodle from Avondale, Arizona, and they were all University of Idaho students. Here's a breakdown of the timeline from what we know so far. Around 1 p.m., we heard reports of a homicide investigation near the college campus. An hour later, the school put out an alert on social media. It said Moscow PD is investigating a homicide on King Road. They asked the community to stay away from the area and shelter in place as a precaution. Around 3 in the afternoon, Krem2 arrived in Moscow. Neighbors said most people living in this area are a part of U of I Greek life or are students. At around 5 in the evening, the Moscow Police Department confirmed they had found 4 people dead, but it wasn't until late last night that they confirmed those victims were students. The university also said Moscow police do not think there's any active threat at the moment as they continue their investigation. Classes for University of Idaho students are canceled for the day. They say they will resume classes tomorrow. In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
Moscow police responded to King Road for a call about an unconscious person Sunday afternoon. When police arrived, they found the 4 deceased students inside the home. This morning, the city of Moscow and University of Idaho identified all 4 U of I students. Freshman Ethan Chapin of Conway, Washington, was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. Zana Kernodle, a junior from Post Falls, was a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority.
Me too, Cali Thunder. That's one thing I keep thinking about. It's like, man, I really want to know.
Madison Mogan was a senior from Coeur d'Alene, and Kaylee Gonsalves was a senior from Rathdrum.
This is a pretty traumatic situation for our campus community.
Dean of Students Blaine Eccles says news of the suspected homicide shocked the Vandal community.
This is rocking their world. Many of them come from small communities where things like this have never happened.
He says drop-in counseling is available to students at any time. He recognizes that many students have already returned home early for the upcoming holiday.
People need to navigate through this situation in the way that best suits them. If students need to go home, be closer with their families, want to return home, I support them in doing that. We're going to support them in doing that.
Support for U of I goes beyond the university campus. Businesses throughout the city of Moscow are offering prayers and thoughts for the Vandal community. And because Moscow is a tight-knit community with a strong relationship with the university, this response isn't a surprise to Mayor Art Bettage.
I feel very badly for them, and not just for the victims, but everybody else who's a friend and associate with those people.
He told me he was shocked by the news about what he's calling a senseless act of violence.
This is stuff that shouldn't happen, especially in a small, quiet town like Moscow is, where we're heavily involved with the university. And these are things that affect not just town, but the university, the students, lends everybody to a sense of insecurity about what's going on here and why. And it's a very tragic and sad situation all around.
In speaking with Kaylee Gonsalves' mother and sister, they tell me Kaylee was a strong and passionate go-getter. She even already had a job lined up in the tech industry after graduation. Kaylee was one of 5 Gonsalves' children.
Guys, I'm switching over to Court TV because they have a brand new video coming out right now.
Continuing into the murder of 4 college students, Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter is joining us live tonight from outside that home. Chanley, you've been there all day, all night. What's happening?
Hey, Vinny, I have some new updates from when I was on with you last, and that is the photographers, the crime scene investigators still inside this home at the time, because we can literally see them through the second-story window in their crime scene suits. You know, they cover themselves so they don't leave anything behind as they collect forensic evidence. We can see them up there on that second floor still working. But in the meantime, the third floor, there was the middle window on the third floor. The light was on when I was live with you last. Now the light is turned off on the third floor. But before we noticed the third floor window light, the light turn off through the window, there were photographers up there, like we witnessed on your show just moments ago on the second floor, CSI taking photos. As we can see now on the second floor, they're taking photos. So they're still actively working this scene. They've been here all day long. It's been roped off with crime scene tape. We see the victim's vehicle still parked out front We've seen investigators walk in and out of the front door of this home carrying giant boxes, I presume full of evidence. On the backside, we witnessed investigators, of course, taking out evidence from the back door, which is the second floor of this house, through a sliding door. They were actually dusting for fingerprints on the back window pane next to that sliding door. And this is almost a week after 4 University of Idaho students were found brutally murdered inside this home. And what we've been hearing in the report, what's being reported, is that 2 of the victims were on the second floor, where we see now the crime scene investigators collecting forensics, and on the 3rd floor of this home is where they were actually located. We're also learning some new details from the Moscow Police Department this evening. They're confirming that, of course, the 4 murdered inside were stabbed to death multiple times while they were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds. Maybe they heard what was going on and woke up. We don't know, but we're confirming there's no sign of any sexual assault or what maybe some have speculated as motive in this crime. Also, there were 2 surviving roommates in this multi-room home that were unharmed, and the detectives have ruled them out. They believe that the 2 surviving roommates and a young man that is seen in video at the food truck where 2 of the victims were hours before their death, they've ruled them out. They are not involved in this crime. Additionally, we learned from the police this evening that any rumors that these victims had been tied or gagged, that was not accurate. They still, though, aren't releasing who called 911, because they're saying that these murders happened around maybe 3 or 4 a.m. last Sunday morning. Police were not called until noon, and they arrived to this home with the front door wide open. They've released that there's no signs of forced entry in this home. And when we've been here, we've noticed that the front door has a door handle with a security code lock pad that some sense of maybe security here at the home, but they say no forced entry. And it's still no murder weapon found. Still no suspect or suspects named. We know that the dumpsters that are to my right and left here at the home, they've collected items. They did mention that. And they also are confirming that they've contacted local businesses here to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. The Idaho Statesman had talked to a local hardware owner store, and he says that the police were in town asking about some kind of combat style or Rambo style knife blade. That's just so scary to think about here, Vinny. And this happened here. I've been out in the town talking to people and neighbors without any arrest and really not much info from the authorities. You know, many people are still on edge and in fear, have left town. I've talked to the neighbors. I know I spoke with one with you live on air just an hour ago, but we've spoken to more since we've been out here. They say that, you know, this is just steps from the University of Idaho campus. A lot of students live here. And so as you can imagine, the parties happen here. We're less than a block from Fraternity Row on campus, where 2 of the victims were at a party before their deaths. So the neighbors say that, you know, it's usual to have parties in this area at this home where the crime scene is. And it's not unusual to hear, you know, people excited or screaming or, you know, just being loud. The neighbor I talked to earlier said they just put on a fan, they drown out the noise, and they go to sleep. So it is unusually quiet here, and people are being more cautious, not only here in this area, but on the campus. Students have gone home for the Thanksgiving holiday, and you can definitely see, Vinny, the increased security, not just of the campus police and Moscow police, but state police here, as well as the FBI are inside this home right now, and private security. The campus has hired private security as well.
I could understand. And again, you're looking at live pictures, folks. This is inside the murder house. You've got photographers with their protective gear on that are taking pictures of the murder scenes. This is a 3-level house, as Chanley has told us. The murders, we believe, took place on the 2nd and 3rd floor. That 2nd level can be accessed from ground floor behind the home. From this side where Chanley is, that front door kind of goes to the lower level, the basement level. Chanley describing it, a lot of parties. It's college. Yeah, and you got red cups right there. There they are. It's just a typical college house. Typical college kids doing what college kids do, only in this case, someone entered that scene and took the lives of 4 of them. Chanley, so just to, once again, I want to go over the big headlines that you've told us. I want to make sure no one is missing this. And you've got, on the one hand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the murder's taking place on the 2nd and 3rd level. Coroner believes everyone may have been sleeping. They think it happened at sometime around 3 in the morning. We've gone through a timeline. It seems everyone got back around 1:45, although there was some reporting from one of the sisters of one of the victims that her sister may have been on the phone with her friend a little bit later, like after 2 o'clock, 2:30 or so. And they're looking for a Rambo-style 6-inch bladed knife is what they believe may be the murder weapon here, although they have not recovered anything. Did I get it all right, Chanley?
Yes, you did, Vinny. And one of the fathers of, I think it was Xana, her dad spoke with her just midnight, the night she was murdered. And you mentioned the knife that they're looking for. The victim was stabbed multiple times in their rooms. It seems as though what we're showing you right now, that's a room on the back side of the 2nd floor that they are inside. And Vinny, we have a photo of what's on the outside of that room, and that's blood seeping through the walls where the crime scene technicians are right now, taking photos and collecting evidence. So it's on the backside of what we're showing you currently. This is such eerie. I mean, that just goes to the magnitude of this scene, the brutality. It's just unbelievable. This is active scene all day. This, we see right now media from all over the nation. As you can tell, Vinny, this is a growing story. This is a community that wants answers, and family members of these victims, as you mentioned, speaking out, even conducting their own investigations, trying to find video from neighbors here. There are tons of neighbors here. And this house is surrounded by other buildings with multiple residences and apartment complex and condos surrounding this kind of on a hill incline. You have to wind your way up a hill. But for GPS, I would not know. You just can't randomly find this home, Vinny. It is so apparent being here on the ground why the authorities think that this is a targeted attack. Not only were there survivors in the home that were unhurt, but you have to know where you're going to get here, Vinny. It's so clear that whoever did this, or multiple people, we don't know, one or more people that did this, knew who was in this home and where to go and how to get here.
Yeah, that's a key factor, right? If it's targeted, right, whether it's targeted by a stranger who's been observing them for some time or somebody involved in their lives, they may have had to have been in there previously, because this is a 3-level home with 6 bedrooms. 6 bedrooms. So it's not so easy to find someone if you just see someone walk inside. You'd have to know a little bit about the layout of this place. Chanley Painter in Moscow, Idaho tonight. I want to bring into our conversation our think tank tonight. Joining us in New York City, former senior homicide prosecutor Bernardo Villalona. In Los Angeles, California, deputy public defender for LA County, Philip Dubé. And in San Diego, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Brian Watkins. And of course, you can always contact Brian at brianwatkinslaw.com. Bernardo, homicide prosecutor, 6 days later now. I mean, this murder took place late Saturday and really Sunday morning, but it's after the Saturday night into the early Sunday morning hours. This is now Friday night. It's dark in Idaho. What does it tell you, the fact that they are still photographing the murder scene?
It definitely tells me that they are trying to cover every inch of that house, every inch in terms of photographing, in terms of drawing diagrams, in terms of swabbing for DNA, swabbing for fingerprints. They are trying to cover all their bases in order to conduct a thorough investigation. Because I'm nervous about this, Vinny. I'll tell you this, because if it ends up that someone is apprehended for this, it can be a circumstantial case unless they get a statement and admission from the person that actually caused the murder of these individuals. But for now, it definitely tells me that they are covering all their bases because they don't have a lead in this case. But they're going to have a lot of profiles to go through in terms of what comes back for the DNA.
Right. Philip Dubé, that DNA is crucial, right? Because while you get the DNA, because the killer may have cut his or herself, right? If the killer cuts themselves and their DNA is left at the scene, but they have never committed a crime before, you may not be able to find them through DNA. But if you do find them a different way, that's how you can prosecute them.
Yes, CODIS is a combined DNA index. That is the national data bank that stores all the DNA samples collected from arrestees and convicts in the United States. And I think they're even working on an international database. So yes, if the offender is not already on record, even if they get a hit from that scene of some foreign donor that doesn't match these young kids, it could take a while before they finally apprehend a suspect. But I do believe, though, that they have brought some type of a profiler to the scene to try to get into the mind of the person who would have done this. And I think it's obvious that they've ruled out this being a property crime because there's no evidence of a true burglary or a robbery or a theft. It certainly wasn't sexually motivated. It doesn't look like they were trying to dissuade a witness by destroying evidence of any type. So what are you left with? You're left with maybe a satanic cult ritual of some type, or maybe a street gang initiation, or a vendetta, or to quote Tamron Hall, someone they knew. This was up close and personal, targeted in an area that somebody had to be familiar with. I have a feeling they're going to get cell tower data where a foreign phone pinged off a tower in that area, and that's how they're going to get a hit.
All right, Brian Watkins, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. This is a super hypothetical, but I'm looking at this situation. The killer could potentially be a student, a classmate, right? This campus has emptied out. All these students are going home for Thanksgiving. We could end up with a quasi Brian Laundrie situation here, where the killer goes home for Thanksgiving, confesses to their parents, because the parents are going to be talking to all the students who are coming back from campus, right? And say, for instance, again, super hypothetically here, Brian, what happens if this person confesses to their parents over Thanksgiving? The parents are like, we need to get a lawyer. They go to a lawyer's office, and now the lawyer knows everything. What happens with that information?
Nothing. That's the problem. The police want to come and question that young man. His lawyer is going to say, no, you cannot. So it's very unlikely that the police are going to be able to get a confession directly out of the perpetrator here, because the lawyer is going to insulate that. Now, the fact that
the lawyer can't say anything, right? Lawyer can't say zip.
Absolutely not. We protect the client to our own peril. That's what our criminal justice system is about. And I can tell you, Vinny, this is going to be a tough case, because you talk about DNA and fingerprints and that type of what we call hard or physical evidence is not going to mean that much at a party house. You know how many people's DNA has been in that house? You know,
that's a great point.
House partying,
that's a great point, Brian.
Their fingerprints. My DNA's there. Sure, I partied with her. I partied with these guys all the time. Well, you know, so there's a lot of DNA, a lot of fingerprints in there. How to decipher out which one killed these poor innocent students is going to be tough.
Bernard, and then I think we get back to what Philip Dubé was talking about, which is the cell phone. I mean, if the killer's got a cell phone and that cell phone is on, it's pinging. It is pinging, and they'll be able to do a pretty good job of placing that killer at the scene at the time.
Yeah. I mean, that happens at times, and it does help. However, you got to think. You got to think that if they even recover, they're going to recover a whole bunch of cell phone data. So they're going to have to go through them individually. And when they investigate these individuals, they have to figure out who had a valid reason to be at this location, and they'll bring him in. But just like Brian said, if they decide not to speak, they don't have to speak. So we're back to square one, but at least the investigators and law enforcement have people that they have placed in the area. And it could work both ways. It works for the prosecution, and it could work for the defense. If there's a prosecution, be like, wait, there were other people that were in the area at the same time. Have they been excluded? Also, we're also assuming that whoever the perpetrator was had their phone on, or there was some kind of usage on their phone. Because if your phone is off, it is not going to ping in any location if your phone is off.
All right, Think Tank with us the whole hour. Big thank you to Chanley Painter tonight out in Moscow, Idaho, bringing us all this information tonight, and to our whole crew out there bringing us these images as investigators continue. Unbelievable story, folks. Again, think about it. You've got a college campus, 4 college students murdered, and everybody else terrified because the killer hasn't been caught. We don't know why they did it. We don't know who they are, and we certainly don't know where they are tonight.
Well, good. That's a good episode by Court TV.
Going on here and why.
Here's the other show that we were watching. How are you guys doing in the chat? Good? You're having a good day? Who do you think did it? One person or 2 persons? You think the hoodie person's involved or not at all? You think it was somebody they knew or a complete stranger? Give me an idea of what you think's going on.
And it's a very tragic and sad situation all around.
In speaking with Kaylee Gonzalez's mother and sister, they tell me Kaylee was a strong and passionate go-getter. She even already had a job lined up in the tech industry after graduation. Kaylee was one of 5 Gonzalez's children. She graduated from Lake City High School, the same school as Maddie Mogan, another victim. Kaylee's family says the 2 were especially close, and Maddie was a part of their family as well. Kaylee's oldest sister, Olivia, shared a statement on behalf of the Gonzalez family. It reads in part, "Kaylee was, is, and always will be our defender and protector. She is tough and fair, the ultimate middle child. She did absolutely everything she set her mind to. She didn't hold back on love, fights, or life. Kaylee was the ultimate go-getter and constantly wanted an adventure." We still have a lot of questions about what happened. Also looking for answers is Kaylee's family. Kaylee's sister, Olivia, asked the public to stop spreading rumors about what happened and wait for the facts from police. We are continuing to ask our own questions and will continue to bring you updates as we get them. In the studio, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
Ethan Chapin, his brother and sister, all grew up here together. They went to school here together, and together they enrolled at the University of Idaho. 3 inseparable siblings, now torn apart.
You just couldn't ask for better kids.
Dave Hayton considered Ethan Chapin family, all the Chapin kids actually. He and his wife watched them grow up in their Conway neighborhood. They'd come over for fudgesicles from the basement freezer. When the couple heard what happened, they were crushed.
She's crying. And she says, Ethan's been murdered. Yeah. I just couldn't, you just can't get your head around it.
All 3 siblings attended the Conway School before moving on to Mount Vernon High, where Ethan played on the basketball team and graduated last year. All 3 later decided to attend the University of Idaho. Ethan and his brother were members of the same fraternity.
I know I didn't sleep a lot last night. I'm just thinking of them. We had some good times together.
The Haytons treated the kids like grandchildren. The couple shared these photos from Ethan's mom's Instagram page, this one taken just a few weeks ago at Parents' Weekend. Dave recalls Ethan as smart, athletic, and always respectful. He says all 3 were great kids, and having one of them gone is inconceivable.
I remember last night I woke up several times and I think, gee, I wish somebody would just tell me this is a bad dream.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
But unfortunately, it's not a bad dream. It's a reality.
Still no word as to a potential motive in these killings, no word as to a potential suspect. However, authorities in Idaho do say that there is no threat to the public. In Conway, Washington, Eric Wilkinson for KREM 2 News.
We've watched this memorial grow all day long. Students dropping off flowers and stuffed animals, remembering the 4 young lives that were lost. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions tonight, like how this happened and why.
Like, it's all just shocking and scary. Like, I never would have thought that this would have happened here.
Tonight, yellow crime tape still surrounds the house where 4 young college students were found dead over the weekend, a crime shocking the University of Idaho community. Classes were canceled today, and some students have decided to go on Thanksgiving break early.
A lot of people left last night, and then we were like, I know we were like the only like one of the only ones who like actually stayed here last night. My mom has called me every single hour for like since like 7 a.m. this morning. So yeah, they want me to come home if I don't feel safe.
Moscow police have not said much about what exactly happened, but they have released the names of the victims. Two of them, Zana Kernodle, a junior from Post Falls, and Madison Mogan, a senior from Coeur d'Alene, were servers at the Mad Greek restaurant in downtown Moscow. The restaurant posted on Facebook saying the two brought so much joy to the restaurant and all they encountered. Mad Greek is now closed, giving staff time to grieve along with the rest of the community. And the university is planning a vigil for the victims. That's taking place at 5 p.m. on Wednesday on the lawn outside the administration building. In Moscow, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
Moscow police maintain there was no threat to the public, but declined to answer questions.
Well, the Moscow Police Department hasn't added any new information since they released a press release this morning about the homicide investigation. But a few hours ago, we did speak with the Latah County coroner. Kathy Mabbitt is calling all four deaths homicides, and that the cause of death is likely a stabbing. But we won't know that for certain until the autopsy report comes back and she can make that official ruling. Now, to take that a step further, Latah County contracts its autopsies out to the Spokane County Medical Examiner. And I confirmed this afternoon that Spokane County is in fact conducting the autopsies on the 4 University of Idaho students. Now, the Spokane County spokesperson says the medical examiner has not yet started those autopsies. Once they are done, the medical examiner will forward her recommended findings to the Latah County coroner. And the Moscow Police Department or the Latah County coroner will release the official ruling. Now, this afternoon, when we talked to the coroner, she described a gruesome crime scene.
Well, there was a lot of blood. It was a very sad scene.
Mabbitt adds that she does not believe the toxicology report on each of the 4 University of Idaho students will be relevant to the manner or cause of death. Now, Mabbitt has been the county coroner for 16 years in Latah County. She says in that time, there have been at least 2 other multiple homicide scenes that she's been involved in. But she says this current homicide investigation is the only one she's been to where there are 4 people at one scene. Now, we are continuing to press local authorities like the Moscow Police Department, as well as the Latah County prosecutor. I have made multiple calls into their offices yesterday and today, have not got a call returned from either agencies. Now, we know there are University of Idaho students, their families, and the greater Moscow community, many of which are still concerned for their safety, even though the police department says there is no active threat to the community. So that is why we remain here in Moscow pressing for answers. And once we do get those, we'll continue to keep you updated. Reporting in Moscow, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
2 of the 4 University of Idaho students who died on Sunday, Xana and Maddie, both worked here at Mad Greek Restaurant. The restaurant has closed its doors for now, and they have also put out a memorial for all 4 of those students.
Tucked inside a Main Street restaurant bench is a memorial catching the community's attention, including Annalise Mitchell. She's a sophomore at University of Idaho.
I just wanted to kind of take a moment to remember them.
Annalise is one of many students struggling to process the death of 4 fellow classmates.
It's been surreal, devastating, horrific, honestly.
Annalise knew the 4 students from the university's Greek life.
When I did talk to them, they were just nothing but kind and nothing but bright and positive, and they definitely made an impact on everyone that they've met.
Now, as classes resume today, many students are leaving campus.
People can't even focus on their schoolwork. Like my sisters and I, we've tried to do our homework and it's not possible.
I agree. I mean, I think they just need to cancel for the rest of the semester. I don't exactly know logistically how they could do that, if the kids still get credits or whatever, but how are they going to be able to function still?
Annalise says for her friends that are still here, she's just being supportive.
Nothing will be the same. At least we're all here for each other and just remembering.
But that community doesn't take away the pain.
Just angry, honestly, because again, it's 4 people. It's 4 people that have touched so many lives and have touched my friends, and to see them in such grief and suffering, it just makes me angry.
In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, Prem 2 News.
It's not something you ever expect to hear.
Through the tears and shock, Jim and Stacy Chapin described the moment they found out their son Ethan was gone.
It's not a call that you think that you're going to have to speak with a funeral home directors and the FBI and have it hit national news.
Earlier this week, Moscow police identified Chapin as one of the 4 victims killed in the home just off campus. Stacy and Jim said their son was staying with his girlfriend at the house, who was also killed, Xana Kernodle. So far, police haven't released many details about the investigation, and as questions mount, the Chapins say they wanted to make sure Ethan's story was told.
It's important for us to get Ethan's story out. We don't really want anybody else representing him, and it's hard to have people speaking on his behalf, so we think it's best for us to do this.
He's the kind of kid that everybody wants.
Who's speaking on his behalf?
To be around. You know, he was just a good kid
He's a good kid,
that
kind to all.
didn't deserve what happened.
No.
They say Ethan was a triplet. He and his siblings were extremely close. In fact, they all decided to attend the University of Idaho. Jim says Ethan was an athletic kid who played club soccer and refereed youth sports. His smile, he says, lit up a room, and he made friends wherever he went. They had just spent last weekend at the university for Parents' Weekend.
And as we pulled out of Moscow, we literally were like, we've done it. We've literally done it as parents. We've created 3 incredible humans that will go on and have something great to offer to this world. Honestly, all 3 of them.
A week later, as they grapple with this horrific loss, they say they're determined to keep moving forward for Ethan.
But we will not let this sink us or sink our kids, because if anything, they have to go on and shine Ethan's bright light on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Moscow Police Chief James Fry, University of Idaho President Scott Green, and the Director of Idaho State Police, Colonel Kendrick Wills, all spoke at today's press conference. Before Wednesday's press conference, Moscow Police had only morning. It shows 2 of the students, Kaylee and Maddie, ordering food around 1:40 a.m. This is one of the last times they were seen. Moscow Police say this video is helping investigators recreate a timeline of events from that night.
And it has helped. It gives us a time and space where we know that 2 of our victims were, and that helps us a ton, and we'll continue to follow up all leads that we can.
The family of Kaylee Gonsalves have seen the video and agreed to let us publish it. They identified Maddie Mogan wearing the long black jacket and Kaylee, who is with her, in the white sweatshirt.
It's normally a place where everyone feels really safe.
Joseph Woodall is the manager of the grub truck. He is seen in the video working the cash register, taking the girl's order. This afternoon, he described their interaction with me.
One of the blondes was just a little bit more cheery and kind of bouncing around a little bit more. And then one was like standing there and doing the hello, how are you? And goes through the interactions. And normally that's pretty normal. In most of our groups, there's people that are more energetic and people that are managing the energetic people.
Joseph told me he felt incredibly sad when he learned the news about the girls he had just seen the other night.
Hope they find the person. Hope they get the person.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I wonder how the other 2 of the triplets are handling that.
Definitely a somber mood at tonight's game. Quite a few empty seats in the student section as well. A lot of them have gone home early for Thanksgiving break, but we talked to students that decided to stick around. They were at tonight's game and they told us they were happy the university didn't cancel this, gave them a chance to see some of their friends, classmates, and somewhat sense of normalcy. A lot of them telling us they won't feel entirely safe on campus until this murderer is caught.
Basketball fans, at this time, we ask that you please stand and join us in a moment of silence for the 4 University of Idaho students that were tragically taken from us on Sunday.
The names of the 4 students found murdered inside a home near campus were read aloud before tonight's game. The Moscow community still in shock.
Definitely like a ghost town here. Weird seeing everyone just pack up and leave.
Like many other students, Jessica Jacobs and Asha Cummings haven't been going to class and say they don't feel as safe alone or on campus as they did a week ago.
The only reason we're still here is because we had a little trip plan going opposite of our homes, but we've been staying together every night, trying to stay as safe as we can, but we definitely are going to go home early.
The question of safety is on everyone's mind right now.
During a press conference this afternoon, University of Idaho officials said they've increased campus patrols and students can request a security escort across campus day or night. The university is also excusing all absences.
That if they want to leave and go home now, they absolutely can. We're going to support them in doing so.
Classes were canceled the day after the 4 bodies were found, but resumed on Tuesday. School officials say some students want to keep their minds occupied.
They gain comfort in being around their other students. They gain comfort from interacting and staying busy with their faculty.
I'm happy they're still doing it, and we're here to support our teams, so we're happy to be here. Lucky that we still get to come to this and like feel safe here.
And the university has postponed a candlelight vigil until after Thanksgiving break in order to give as many students that want to attend the opportunity to. That's scheduled for sometime on November 30th. In Moscow, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
Thursday, the autopsy results are released.
The Spokane County Medical Examiner finished the autopsies yesterday and sent them over to the Latah County Coroner. With that, the coroner sent out this. You can see here at the bottom of the document, cause of death, homicide, murder, and manner of death is stabbing. Moscow PD says whoever did this used a large knife. We also learned yesterday Idaho State Police say investigators think the killer got in the house through the sliding glass door. ISP says the forensic team is taking another look at the house to make sure they didn't miss any details.
We intend to come out and solicit information from the public if they are within certain areas that we believe are of interest for this investigation. And so hopefully today or early tomorrow, we will come out with a map where the victims were at specific times during the night and ultimately ending at their residence.
The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit is now helping in the investigation. They do crime analysis, create suspect profiles, and help with interview strategies. ISP says an FBI command vehicle is on its way to bring Moscow up more resources. As for the other two roommates who were home during the attack, ISP says they are cooperating with investigators. They are not suspects or persons of interest as of now, but ISP says nobody is clear from the investigation yet. In the newsroom, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
Earlier this evening, the University of Idaho released a statement urging students to be vigilant. For those that are still here, security will increase over this weekend. Moscow police say patrols have also ramped up around the community. The school district says patrols will monitor the area around its schools. Idaho State Patrol is helping with this extra police presence. People I spoke with in the community today are less concerned about their own safety and more focused on making sure the suspect or suspects are found. In your 70 years of living in this area, would you ever have thought that something like that could happen?
No, really. No.
I definitely was shocked and a little scared, but at the same time, I do have a feeling that the person who did this was somebody that they knew. And so I wasn't personally afraid.
This morning, I noticed.
Keith says, by the way, Keith, it's really good to see you. I'm happy to see you tonight. You said, time to pull the Movement Church super sticker train out of the station. Hashtag choo-choo. Well, that'd be great. We haven't done a train at all today. So we're way behind the times, and we really don't have much time left in the stream. So if you guys want to support today, now's your chance. Thank you, Keith.
Quite a few more law enforcement just out and about. I'm really grateful for them.
People say they're thankful Moscow PD are calling on the necessary agencies to help protect the community and figure out what exactly happened on Sunday. In a press conference yesterday, we learned from the Moscow Police Chief, James Fry, that the department has called on 25+ investigators, the state police, and FBI to assist in solving this case. The Moscow Police Department maintains that this was a targeted attack. For that reason, the people I spoke to say they don't personally feel a threat in the community. But like said, the University of Idaho is reminding people here to remain vigilant and provide any and all information you can to Moscow police. In Moscow, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
People across the country want to know what happened inside this home and why. For those living in Moscow, there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty. And how could there not be? 4 young college students were stabbed to death, and their killer still hasn't been caught. Ever since the yellow crime tape went up, the Moscow Police Department has faced scrutiny for not providing as much information about the case as some would like to know.
You know, there's some things that only the people that were at that scene would know. And so you definitely don't want to release that information to the public.
Gary Jenkins is the former chief of Pullman Police and now serves in that role for the WSU Police Department. He says sharing details is a balancing act, keeping people safe and informed without compromising the investigation.
Just trying to make sure that when detectives go out and interview people, it's based on what they know, not what they've heard on the news.
The University of Idaho told students this week they could go home early for Thanksgiving break if they didn't feel safe around campus, and many already have. Jenkins says that could pose a challenge for detectives.
Hey, Laura, thank you. Doctora Latina, thank you so much. Gene, appreciate you guys' support. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Detectives trying to interview witnesses. It was for him during the hazing death of Sam Martinez, which also occurred right before Thanksgiving break in 2019.
Most of the witnesses left town, and that's the type of investigation you need to have a one-on-one in-person interview. And so it does definitely complicate that investigation.
Jenkins says the answers all of us want could take time.
They're trying to juggle a lot of balls in the air right now, particularly with 4 victims. It's going to be a very complex crime scene. It's going to be a complex investigation.
Friday.
New details are emerging in the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. Tonight, the Latah County coroner says the 4 students were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds, and each victim was stabbed multiple times. Authorities found no sign of sexual assault. Moscow police say at this point in the investigation, they do not believe the 2 surviving roommates or the man seen standing near a local food truck were involved in the murders.
I don't understand about the man standing near that food truck. I know they're saying that that guy's not involved, but somebody's going to have to do some explaining to me on that.
Police also addressed rumors swirling online claiming the victims were gagged and tied, saying those are not accurate, and the identity of the 911 caller has not been released. Detectives say they've received nearly 500 tips, which are being processed, investigated, and cleared. 38 people who may have information about the murders have been interviewed. The whereabouts of the killer and the knife used are still unknown. Detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to look for evidence. Police have also gone to local businesses to see if anyone recently purchased a fixed blade knife. Anyone who saw something suspicious, has video surveillance, or can provide relevant information about the murders is asked to call the Moscow Police Department.
Investigators are still trying to piece together where the 4 University of Idaho students went the night before they were found in their Moscow home, stabbed to death. Investigators are hoping the map released today will provide additional tips from the community.
The map details the night of Saturday, November 12th into the early hours of Sunday, November 13th. It highlights locations and approximate times when Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan were in downtown Moscow, while Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were at the Sigma Chi house. Investigators believe Madison and Kaylee were at the Corner Club on Saturday from 8 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Sunday. Then they were at the Grub Truck on Main Street at 1:40 a.m. 5 minutes later, the map says they returned to their home on King Road. I drove that route this afternoon, starting at 4th and Main and ending at the King Road home. With some light traffic on the road, I arrived at the house in about 3 minutes. This suggests it's reasonable to believe Madison and Kaylee traveled by car from the food truck, but that detail has not been confirmed by police. Investigators also say Ethan and Xana were at a party at Sigma Chi from 8 to 9 p.m., then returned to the home.
Take a look at this map. It's possible they walked right from that party to the food truck. It's 3 blocks. I could see that happening. Maybe that guy was walking with him the whole distance. Thank you, Athena, for hopping aboard. Super sticker.
Home on King Road at 1:45 a.m. The fraternity is a short 3-minute walk from the house, but still, there is a 5-hour gap on their location between the party and arriving at home. Investigators hope someone might remember being at or near the locations they've identified around the same time and potentially saw something suspicious or relevant to the investigation. Police are asking those people to call the tip line or email with that information.
This is all good information, but it brings up even more questions, such as, did investigators use the students' cell phones to identify the locations and times on this map? Did Madison and Kylie walk or drive or get a ride back to the home? And did Xana and Ethan spend only 1 hour at the Sigma Chi fraternity? I have several calls into Idaho State Police and other local authorities working this investigation. I have not heard back, but we will continue to press for answers as this story develops. Reporting in Moscow, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
All right, folks. Well, I've been streaming for quite some time today, so time for this stream to come to an end. I'm going to pray for you guys. If you want to support the channel, you can like, subscribe, you can give on PayPal, which is Tyler Feller, Cash App, $, Tyler Feller 22, or Venmo at Tyler-Feller. Thank you, everybody who sent a super sticker, super chat today. Trust me when I say every single gift makes a huge difference. It really, really, really does. So thank you for all of you who are supporting what we're doing here. Let me take a second and just pray for those of you that are watching today. Lord, I bless every single person on the stream. In the mighty name of Jesus, I thank you, Lord, that you are good to us, that we can call on you, that you give us strength in the middle of the even struggles that we have in our life. And I just pray right now for supernatural energy and strength for people who are watching to face what's ahead of them today and this weekend, and as they're preparing for Thanksgiving and the holidays. And even since there's some people
Lord, that have a sense of loneliness that comes upon them in this season. Lord, I pray that they sense your nearness and closeness to them, that they know that you are good, that you love them, that beyond measure, you gave up everything for them. And so, Lord, I pray that it's really an opportunity for them, instead of to walk in sadness, that they'll find great strength and joy in you. And so I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey guys, thanks for being on here. And if you don't mind, as soon as I end this video, go comment on it. And that's it. We'll see you guys after a while.